Starting off at number 10 now, we have 1212. The story goes like this. One night, a Korean girl named Sun Hee was at school. It was late and she was studying in the library with a group of other students from her class. All the lights were on, but the rest of the school was in darkness. After a while, Sun Hee went to use the toilet. She told her friends and then headed down the dark hallway to the bathroom. A few minutes passed and then, in the library, the other students began to hear a faint tapping noise. It was quiet at first but got steadily louder. It seemed to be coming from the window. When they looked out, there, standing in the darkness, was a pale woman. She pressed her face against the window but seemed to keep her eyes shut. One of her long, crooked fingers was tapping on the window. Then one of the students gasped in horror. The woman wasn't closing her eyes. She didn't have any eyes at all. There were just dark holes where her eyes should have been. Then she raised her fist and smashed the glass. All the lights went out. In the bathroom, Sun Hee was about to wash her hands when she was plunged into darkness. There was silence. She was too far from the library to hear the screams as the woman slaughtered the other students. She stepped back into the library and stopped dead in her tracks. The bodies of the other students were everywhere. Shaking with fear, her mind raced as she tried to figure out what had happened. Then she heard footsteps coming from down the hallway. Sun Hee dropped to the ground to play dead. She heard something enter the room. It made a rustling sound as it moved. Then there was a whisper. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Sun Hee kept her eyes closed and prayed. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. She felt the presence draw nearer and heard the voice getting louder. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. As it came beside her, the counting stopped. Sun Hee remained paralyzed with fear. There was absolute silence. After several minutes of this, Sun Hee thought the woman had gone. She slowly opened her eyes. The woman was crouching directly over her, staring into her eyes. She had one pale, bony finger pointing straight at Sun Hee's face. 1, 2, she said, before plucking her eyeballs out with her fingers. Yes. Okay, we started off pretty intense with that one, didn't we? Let's keep it going now as we move on to our number 9 now, which is the Cuckoo Man. This urban legend began to spread around Korea a few years ago. There were rumors in schools about a crazy man who was terrorizing students, the Cuckoo Man. They say that he would lurk in alleyways and dark streets, lying in wait for his next victim. One story involved a group of schoolgirls passing by. They heard a voice saying cuckoo, cuckoo. When they turned around to look at him, the Cuckoo Man would savagely attack them. Some say that he used a baseball bat, others say his weapon of choice was an axe. Either way, reports of this happening became more and more frequent. One of them involved 20 to 30 schoolgirls walking down the street when the Cuckoo Man jumped them and started hitting them all with a baseball bat one by one. He only stopped when the police arrived, at which point he fled into the night. Some say there is one way to stop the Cuckoo Man from attacking you. If you're walking down the street and hear a strange voice behind you saying cuckoo, cuckoo, you must also reply with cuckoo, cuckoo, and then run for your life. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the MP3 kidnappings. This urban legend appeared around 2010 and has been spreading in some form or another ever since. People say that kidnappers in Korea have had much easier jobs ever since people started listening to music with their headphones. It was around 2010 when listening to music like this became very widespread in South Korea, and that's about when the reports of the kidnappings began. People say that kidnappers were driving around dark streets waiting to spot someone with headphones blasting music in their ears. And then, when the innocent person is distracted, they are bundled into the back of a car and taken away. The phenomenon began spreading across the whole country and was even talked about online. Many blogs and forums told the story of a female middle school student who was walking around one night, headphones blaring. She was kidnapped by 3 or 4 criminals who wrapped tape around her mouth and then assaulted her. They then returned her to the spot where they found her. Although these may just seem like stories, it has resulted in some South Koreans developing a real superstition about listening to loud music alone, especially when walking along dark and creepy streets. Next up, number 7 now, we have the Handsome Man. The story goes like this. 19-year-old Karuko lived on the 14th floor of her apartment building. One night she was coming home late from university and took the elevator up to her floor. She was alone, but a moment before the doors closed, a handsome man stepped into the elevator with her. He smiled and stood quite close to her. They chatted for a while and the man said that he lived on the 13th floor. When they reached that, he got out, turned to face her. His smile turned to an evil one. He tilted his head and said, "I'll see you upstairs." Then he pulled out a knife and laughed manically as he ran up the staircase. Before Karuko could do anything, the elevator doors closed. She tried to stop the elevator by hitting every button she could, but nothing worked. When she got to her floor, the doors opened and there he was. She was never heard from again. Some people in Korea believe this is the reason why elevators now have a stop button, and they'll be happy to tell you Karuko's story to show you why. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the sesame seeds. The story goes like this. One day a girl was worried about her skin getting old and wrinkled. She was obsessed with improving the look of her skin constantly. At first she used normal products, but then felt she needed more than that and started to explore stranger techniques. One day a friend of a friend told her that if you put sesame seeds in your bath, they will help your skin stay youthful and glowing. The girl had heard a lot of techniques, but not one like this. Perhaps this was a secret method that would satisfy her forever. She rushed home and ran a bath. After pouring a huge bag of sesame seeds, she jumped into the bath, where she stayed for hours. Her family told her to get out of the bathroom eventually, but the girl refused. She wanted more time for it to work. Her mother grew suspicious and kicked the door down eventually. To her absolute horror, she found the girl in a shocking state. Every last seed had attached itself to her skin pores and wrinkles and sent roots down into her skin. Her daughter had a calm but crazed look in her eyes. She was trying to remove the seeds one by one with a toothpick, but all that came out was her trickling blood splashing onto the bathroom floor. At number 5 now, we have Snake Lubak. Some Russians believe that occasionally a shooting star falling to earth may actually be a Snake Lubak, a demonic figure that resembles a giant snake. It's often called the fiery serpent due to its fiery descent to earth in a huge ball of fire. After it lands and the dust settles, the Snake Lubak takes on human form. To be more specific, it takes on the form of a lost love that died to whomever it appears in front of. It chooses people who are desperate to see their partner one last time. The Snake Lubak then tricks the person into believing that they never died at all. Once the person is totally under its spell, it slowly convinces them to commit suicide, a fate which many say is unavoidable. At number 4 now, we have the Chernobyl Blackbird. I'm sure many of you guys have heard about the Chernobyl disaster, the nuclear power plant meltdown that happened in 1986, leaving a large part of the Soviet Union uninhabitable because of radiation. Now, according to some of the locals who lived nearby, there were signs of the disaster coming beforehand. Some of them experienced nightmares, strange phone calls, and encounters with a huge winged monster they called the Blackbird of Chernobyl. Apparently it looked like a twisted hybrid of bird and human, with huge wings and big red eyes. Some even say they saw it flying over the reactors during the meltdown. Is it just some stupid story, or does this creature warn people of impending doom, or perhaps even cause it? Coming at number 3 now, we have UVB76, also known as the Buzzer. This is the nickname given to a shortwave radio station that broadcasts a short, monotonous buzzing noise all day, every day, and has been doing it since 1973, 45 years ago. Nobody knows why this exists or where this creepy station is. Sometimes the buzzer signal is interrupted by a Russian voice that reads out a string of random phrases and numbers. The message usually starts with UVB76. When the message stops, the buzzing begins again, sometimes continuing for years. Theories for this have ranged from military communications to a way to announce a nuclear war has begun. At number 2 now, we have the Collector. In old Russian folklore, the Collector is a strange dark figure who kidnaps people, kills them, and then puts their mummified bodies on display for his own pleasure. If that sounds too disturbing to be true, then think again. Russians were shocked in 2011 to learn that there was a real-life version of the Collector that had been arrested. He used to dig up corpses and dress their remains in women's clothing to display around his home. In total, he did this with an astounding 29 corpses. If there's anything worse than an urban legend, it's a real one coming to life. And finally, at number 1 now, we have Baba Yaga. Everyone I spoke to about this video told me to include Baba Yaga, and for good reason. According to Russian folklore, she is a supernatural being who appears as a deformed old woman. She flies around in a giant mortar while using the pestle to steer. Deep in the Russian woods, she lives in a log cabin that moves around on a pair of chicken legs. The keyhole to her door is filled with sharp teeth. The fence outside is made with human bones topped with skulls. She always leaves one empty though. for you. She is said to kidnap children and threaten to eat them. An emphasis is placed on the need for proper preparation of purity or spirit when meeting her, as well as politeness. This creepy being is said to have good qualities at times, but for many Russians who grew up hearing about her, Baba Yaga is always something to avoid, especially in the woods at night. Coming at number 10 now, we have the Russian sleep experiment. Some of you guys may have heard of this one before. It became a very popular creepypasta a few years ago, and for good reason. According to the legend, Russian scientists in the 1940s took 5 prison inmates and locked them in an airtight chamber with a special gas inside that made them unable to sleep. They wanted to study the effects of sleep deprivation over 30 days. On day 5, the inmates stopped talking to each other. By day 9, some of them were screaming, begging to get out. One of the others tore apart the books they were given, smeared them with their own feces, and then covered the one-way mirror with it, which the scientists were using to observe them. Then the screaming stopped. By day 15, they announced over the intercom that they were coming in. A voice replied, "We no longer want to be freed." They opened up the chamber to find one of the inmates had just been torn to pieces by the others. They had also mutilated themselves almost to the point of death. The team tried to surgically reverse the damage on their brains, but they resisted and couldn't be sedated. They just kept laughing and laughing. They demanded to be let back into the chamber, which the head scientist then agreed to. Appalled at what he was seeing, one of the scientists shot the head scientist and the remaining subjects. Before killing the last one, he asked, "What are you?" The prisoner responded, "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralyze when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." The scientist fired the gun and killed him. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the legend of Brosnia. The Brosnia is said to be an ancient mythological beast that lives within the waterways of the Adriapol district. Perhaps the closest comparison to this for a Western audience would be the Loch Ness Monster. The Brosnia lurks below the surface there. Many have heard of it, but few have seen it. They describe it as a prehistoric creature with a dragon's head and long thin tail. There have been accounts of the beast going back well over 1,000 years. One notable example involves a Mongol army in the 8th century that fled the area after the Brosnia attacked them, eating their soldiers and horses. Some even say it's related to the Loch Ness Monster. Wouldn't that be an interesting family reunion? Coming at number 8 now, we have Ivan Vasily. That's the name of a ship, not a person. It was built in St. Petersburg in 1897. Everything was fine with the ship for about 25 years, and then in 1903 something changed. The crew were in the Indian Ocean one day when they felt a strange presence, almost as if an invisible entity was watching over them. There was a chill in the air. One night they saw an apparition, a human figure that strolled across the deck, its features too blurry to make out, and it then disappeared behind a lifeboat. A few nights later, when the ship was docked in China, a crew member screamed out into the night, sending everyone into a crazy panic. They lost their minds and went berserk, beating each other and themselves. It only ended when one of the crew members threw himself overboard and died. A few days later, it happened again. The crew became possessed with this fighting rage, and only ended with another crew member's death by drowning. The crew abandoned ship at port. The new crew set sail, but the same thing happened to them. This time 4 people died, including the captain, all of them throwing themselves overboard. Eventually the crew burned down the ship, cheering at the sight as they left in smaller boats. What do you guys think of that one? Can ships be so haunted that they drive people to suicide? Next up at number 7 now, we have the Well to Hell. This one comes from Siberia, a part of Russia that's perhaps one of the most inhospitable places on earth. You'll rarely find people here, which is why a lot of stories have sprouted up around it. According to legend, a scientific team were drilling a hole to study samples in the Siberian permafrost. Suddenly, the drill started malfunctioning and letting off intense heat from below. Then they heard faint noises coming from within the hole. They scrambled to get a microphone and began feeding it down the hole so that they could hear better. They realized the noises were actually human voices coming from deep in the ground, and they were screaming out in pain. The terrified team packed up right away and left, convinced they had found a well to hell. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the Black Volga. This one comes from the height of the Cold War during the 1960s and 70s. During that time, many Russians talked of a Black Volga, an expensive car usually driven by those high up in the Soviet government. They said this particular car would appear out of nowhere. Its side mirrors were actually horns, and it would steal children from the side of the road, never to be seen again. What's more, some say the car was driven by the devil himself. For me though, the scariest part of the story is yet to come. It was said that those who doubted this story's authenticity would just be dead within 24 hours. Of course, this only made the story spread even faster. Do you guys dare doubt its authenticity? Next up at number 5 now, we have sesame seeds. This is a strange urban legend that seems to scare people about coming into contact with sesame seeds. A girl had heard that taking a bath with sesame seeds in the water would be good for her skin, so that's exactly what she did. She sat in the bath for hours and hours. After a while, the girl's mother became concerned and went to check on her. When she opened the door, she found the girl was covered in the seeds which had sunk deep into her flesh. The daughter was crying and trying to remove them with a toothpick. There's one for any of you guys who hate the thought of holes in your skin. Alright, moving on to number 4 now, we have the bathroom girl. This one is kind of like Moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter, but about 100 times more creepy. There are stories that in some of the old Korean schools with their dimly lit bathrooms live the ghosts of girls who have killed themselves. It's said that she now haunts the stall where the event took place. How do you know which stall it is? Well, the toilets have been said to flush by themselves, the doors slam with nobody around, and sometimes you can hear her cry or even catch a glimpse of her in the mirror. The most gruesome by far though is that sometimes she is said to emerge from the stall and ask you if you will use red or blue toilet paper. If you choose red, the ghost will then cut you open. If you choose blue, the ghost will suffocate you. I probably just wouldn't wipe. Next up at number 3 now, we have ghost money. In this urban legend, a member of the South Korean Mint went away on a business trip. During the trip, his daughter was abducted, murdered, and then dismembered. After a lengthy investigation, nobody was tried for the crime. It was believed that this lack of justice would turn the girl's ghost into an angry spirit that would seek revenge. Because of this, the Mint began to place images of her body parts and parts of her name on South Korean currency in the hopes that this would appease her. The Mint has denied all knowledge of this. At number 2 now, we have the loan shark. A loan shark is someone who lends people money, often illegally, at extremely high interest rates. Sometimes, if they don't get their money back, they take matters into their own hands. There's an urban legend from a small village in South Korea. Farmers there had to make a mass grave to bury cattle in who had died from disease. Not long after that, they heard a human voice calling out from beneath the soil. By the time they had dug through the dirt, the person buried among the cattle had already died. An investigation found that they owed a lot of money to a loan shark. This has apparently happened dozens of times across the country. And finally, number 1 now, we have oysters. This is a really weird urban legend coming from the South Korean coastline. Apparently, one day a guy was walking along the beach when he slipped and fell on a sharp rock that cut his knee open. He washed it quickly and put a bandage over it. When he got home, it started to itch, but he didn't want to remove the bandage in case it just made things worse. He took it off after a few days, and to his absolute horror, tiny oysters just covered the wound. It turns out there had actually been oyster eggs on the rock he had fallen on which had gotten into his wound. They were protected by the bandage and fed on his blood until they had rooted themselves in his leg. Yeah. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Virginial Ghost. This is a term used to describe those grudge type apparitions that you've probably seen in horror movies with the hair over the face, usually dressed in white. One day, a man who lived on the top floor of an apartment building woke up to the sound of a knock at his door. He lived alone and rarely got visitors. He walked to the door and asked, "Who's there?" After a few seconds, a voice said, "Count to 100 and don't make a sound or you'll die." He opened the door and there was nobody there. He was still quite scared though, and so he closed his eyes and started to count to 100 in his head. When he got to 49, he opened his eyes out of curiosity, and there she was, right in front of his face. Next up at number 9 now, we have plastic surgery. Now, plastic surgery is a big market in South Korea, and as such, horror stories have sprouted up around it. This story starts with a man sitting on an empty subway car when a tall, thin woman sits down in front of him. Her long, dark hair covers most of her face, but he can see she's wearing a surgical mask. As the doors close, he catches her eye. He smiles. She asks him, "Am I pretty?" He replies, "Yes," and then she starts to take the mask off. There's a huge wound from ear to ear, exposing her bleeding gums, teeth, and muscles. "Am I pretty now?" she screams at him. She takes out a scalpel and moves towards him. The doors open and he runs for his life. Next up at number 8 now, we have the organ thief. This is quite a modern South Korean urban legend coming from the city of Gwangju. Screenshots of a text conversation between two friends appeared on Facebook there and went viral. One of the friends was warning the other to not take taxis there at night. night. They said that one of their friends got in a taxi while drunk. The taxi driver then put a needle in their neck. They lost consciousness and were defenseless. When they came round, they were bleeding from their stomach and lying in a field on the outskirts of the city. He was rushed to hospital where doctors found he was missing a kidney. The fear of these organ-stealing taxi drivers became so much that city officials said it was actually affecting the taxi business in the city. Alright, next up at number 7 now, we have Dalgyal Guishin. This is what's known as a traditional type of Korean ghost dating back in legend hundreds and hundreds of years. It's notable because the ghost is said to appear with absolutely no facial features. No eyes, no nose or mouth. Some of them even lack arms and legs. They're often referred to as perhaps the most terrifying spirits in Korean folklore, as even just looking at one can cause instant death. Alright, next up at number 6 now, we have the Back. The story goes that a married couple with a young son were always fighting every single day. After years and years of this, it got so bad that in a sheer rage the father murdered the mother. He covered up the crime and nobody else suspected a thing. The only strange thing was the boy never seemed to complain about the absence of his mother, and so he asked him, "Son, why aren't you calling out for mommy? Most little boys would want their mummy to be with them. Tell me what bothers you." The little boy looked up and slowly replied, "I'm fine. I was just wondering why you're always carrying mommy on your back." This is one of many similar stories found across the land. Moving on to number 5 now, we have 100 Steps Cemetery. This is located in the town of Brazil in Indiana. Interesting name for a town, and the cemetery is even more interesting. It's been used for at least 150 years, and in that time it's gained quite a sinister reputation for a ghostly undertaker. The story goes that as you walk up the many steps to the top of the cemetery, you must count each and every step. When you reach the top, you must turn towards the open field, and then the ghost of the cemetery's first undertaker will appear. Without saying anything, he will then reveal your own death to you in a vision. Straight away you must proceed back down the steps and count each one again. If the number is different to the one that you counted on the way up, the vision was true. An added bonus is that if anyone tries to cheat and climb up or down without using the steps, a ghostly hand will push them to the ground, leaving a red imprint on their back for days as a mark of the devil. Definitely not a place to go for just a Sunday walk then. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Goat Man of Pope Lick. I love my job because I get to say sentences like that. This is an old Kentucky urban legend about a hideous being who roams the woods across that state. Those who have seen him describe the Goat Man as having dark fur, pale skin, goat legs and twisted horns. Some people say he was an escaped circus freak, others say he was a farmer who tortured goats for Satan. Satan then repaid him by turning him into a tortured goat himself. The Goat Man is said to hide under the rusty bridge that crosses Pope Lick Creek in Louisville. Legend says he lures people onto the train tracks there and then takes pleasure in them being hit by oncoming trains. Please don't go looking for this one though, guys. In 2016, a woman actually fell to her death from the bridge while looking for the Goat Man. At number 3 now, we have Slaughterhouse Canyon. With a name like that, you know it's not going to be a pretty story. During the 1800s gold rush, a family lived in the canyon there in a little wooden shack. Every day was the same. The husband would set off into the mountains to search for gold and food for his family. Then one day he just didn't come back, presumably injured or killed by animals, the mountain, or even other humans. His wife waited for her husband for weeks until the whole family began to starve. Driven mad with the hunger and her children's cries, she put on her wedding dress, picked up a knife and murdered her children, throwing them into the river and then weeping until starvation killed her too. Legend says that if you visit the canyon today, you can still hear the mother's painful cries. Alright, next up at number 2 now, we have the Black Angel. This statue looks very creepy as it is. An old, worn, corroded angel staring down over Oakland Cemetery in Iowa City. Her sinister appearance has helped spawn a number of different legends around her. One of them says that a pregnant woman should never walk under her lest they want to lose their unborn child. Another says that if you kiss or perhaps even just touch the statue, you'll be dead within 6 months. This is the kind of story that scares everyone off. Whether or not you believe in curses, it's just not even worth thinking about. And finally, number 1 now, we have Cropsey. Many New Yorkers know the story of Cropsey, the boogeyman of Staten Island. Legend says that he was an escaped patient from a mental asylum who went on a murderous rampage. He had a hook for a hand, which he would then use to drag children back to the abandoned ruins of Seaview Hospital. Pretty creepy stuff, but here's where it gets really scary. Many parents would tell this story to their kids to scare them into being cautious about strangers, even if they didn't really believe the story themselves. But then in the 1970s, a real killer called Andre Rand really did start hunting children in a very similar way. Was he using the Cropsey legend as cover? Either way, people now now take the legend a lot more seriously. Wow, America, you kinda creepy. You really are kinda creepy. What did you think of all of those? I tried to cover a bunch of different states, but America is a pretty big place with many different urban legends. Would you like a part 2 so we can do more, or shall we just move straight on to another country in the world? If so, what country should that be? Going off at number 10 now, we have the Grunch. This one comes from Louisiana. In the early days of New Orleans, there was a road called Grunch Road that went deep into the swampy woods before coming to a dead end. That is where the Grunch people lived, a strange hybrid of albinos and dwarves, forced away from society and made to live in their own community. As years went by, people started to doubt the story's authenticity, but it sparked up again when people started disappearing down Grunch Road. Nearby farmers reported their animals missing or finding them dead and drained of blood. Many locals now refuse to head down Grunch Road for fear of meeting the same fate. Moving on to number 9 now, we have Stull Cemetery. To those that know the story, Stull Cemetery in Kansas is better known as the doorway to hell. Legend says that the devil himself chose the cemetery as his entrance from the underworld to our own. Now it's said that a tree once stood in the cemetery and an old tombstone there was inscribed with the word witch. The tree was used to hang condemned witches back in the day who were put to death by the locals. The tombstone apparently marks the burial spot of Satan's own child, a creature born deformed and covered in wolf hair. In modern times, the legend has continued with reports of the ground catching fire in random spots. Pope John Paul II was said to divert his private plane around the cemetery because it was so tainted by evil. Now whether or not you believe all of that, there's plenty of videos on YouTube to check out if you're interested, and I find them quite creepy. Moving on to number 8 now, we have Knock Knock Road. This one is for all of you guys watching that get very creeped out by little girl ghosts. I think they're the worst kind of ghost. Strasburg Road near Detroit has a disturbing tale of murder attached to it. Legend says that a little girl was killed on the road in the 1940s by a hit and run driver. Ever since then, people have reported the same story. They stop at a traffic light and see on the side of the road a young girl standing, just standing and staring right into your car. Whether they freeze or then try to speak to her, she slowly walks forward to the car and stares at you with deep set hollow eyes. She scans your face to try and find her killer and get her revenge. I guess you better hope you just don't look like the killer. At number 7 now, we have the Charman. This story goes that in 1948 a wildfire swept across Ojai, California. The flames consumed a cabin where a man lived with his son. He was burned alive, but the son survived, just barely though. When the authorities arrived, they found a shocking scene. The father had been flayed alive. His skin had been removed from his body and peeled off. His body was just hanging from a nearby tree. The police then searched for the perpetrator. They heard a wheezing sound from a nearby bush, and then suddenly the son just bolted out of it. The overpowering smell of him stunned the officers, and in that moment the boy ran into the trees and then escaped into the hills. In the years since then, many locals have said they've seen the Charman in the woods, horribly disfigured by his burns and tormented by his past. He's said to creep up on the tents of innocent campers in the hills, waiting for them to fall asleep. Coming at number 6 now, we have Hell's Gate Bridge. This one comes from Oxford, Alabama. The story goes that in the 1950s, a young couple crashed their car off the side of this bridge and drowned. Now, some locals believe you cross the bridge at your own peril. One story is that if you drive your car out to the middle of the bridge and then turn off all the lights, the couple will appear in your car just sitting behind you. When you turn around, they'll be gone, leaving a wet seat behind. The other story is that if you drive over the bridge and then look over your shoulder about halfway through, the scenery behind you turns into a portal to hell, just spouting fire and flames. Now whether or not you believe all of this, it's enough for some people to just look for a different way to cross the river. Next up at number 5 now, we have the hauntings at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. This historic hotel is over 90 years old and has hosted some of the biggest stars in Hollywood over the years. The 12-story high building has 300 guest rooms and 63 suites, some of which are said to be haunted. 2 of the ghosts are actually famous ghosts. Montgomery Clift is said to haunt room 928, the room he stayed in while filming From Here to Eternity. People say he moves around the occupants' luggage, while others have said they've seen him in the hallways rehearsing lines for his movie or playing the trumpet. The other celebrity haunting is someone a lot more famous, Marilyn Monroe. She is said to haunt the full-length mirror that was once in her suite. Since she stayed in the hotel, the mirror has been relocated from her room, but the hauntings still follow it. People report seeing the ghostly apparition of Marilyn standing over their shoulder. Some people might like that, definitely not me. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the bus to nowhere. This one comes from Pennsylvania. Some say that this state is home to a bus that goes nowhere. It picks up hopeless people people and keeps them on it forever unless they are able to shake out of its trance. The bus is said to have no displays, no route number, and no destination. It only stops for people who want to leave where they are but have no destination in mind. Philadelphians often say they've seen it winding through the city streets. Some people also call it the wandering bus or simply Zero. People say that once you're on the bus, you sit like everyone else, staring out of the window, wrapped in your own thoughts, desperate to get away from whatever pain and despair is in your life. You can pull the cord anytime when you're ready to disembark, but be warned. Legend says that time does not move the same on the bus to nowhere. Your trip could have lasted minutes, days, months, or in some cases, years. The only silver lining is that when the passengers finally do disembark, they find themselves exactly where they're supposed to be. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Snallygaster. This is a mythical dragon-like beast said to inhabit central Maryland. It was first described by German immigrants who called it the Schnellergeist, which translates to quick ghost. It's been described as being half bird, half reptile, and with a strange metallic beak lined with razor-sharp teeth. Some even say it has octopus-like tentacles. It swoops down silently from the sky and carries its human victims off to its den, where it then sucks them dry of blood. Newspaper reports from February and March 1909 describe encounters between local residents and a beast with enormous wings, a long pointed bill, claws like steel hooks, and an eye in the center of its forehead. They said its screech sounded like a locomotive whistle. Now, other than the humans it hunts, the Snallygaster is also said to have one mortal enemy, the Deweo. The Deweo is reported to be a mammalian biped that looks like a wolf but stands like a human. It's been reported all over Maryland, and locals have said they've seen vicious battles between the two creatures. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Huggin' Molly. You might think her name sounds quite nice. Everyone needs a hug from time to time, probably not from Molly. Generations of people from Alabama have grown up with this very creepy legend. They said Molly is a giant ghost, at least 7 feet tall, who wanders the streets of Abbeville, Alabama. Late at night, she can be seen dragging her long black skirt as she goes. If you see her, run, because if she sees you, she will chase you and she will get you. Once she does, she picks you up with her huge arms and gives you the tightest hug of your life while screaming in your ear. They say the horrible sound she makes never leaves you. There have been no reports of Huggin' Molly ever killing someone, but her attacks are enough to strike fear into the hearts of everyone around. And finally at number 1, we have the Carter brothers. In New Orleans in the 1930s, a young girl ran into a police station begging for help. She said that 2 local businessmen, John and Wayne Carter, had been keeping her hostage and feeding off her blood. She showed them the cuts on her wrist, not quite enough to kill her, but just enough to extract blood from. The police rushed to the apartment to find 4 other women tied to chairs with their wrists slit in a similar fashion. In another room, they also found 12 bodies that had been drained of their blood. The police staked the place out and waited for the men to return. When they did, it took 8 police officers to hold them down and restrain them. Their strength seemed superhuman. The pair were executed for their crimes and buried in a sealed tomb. Years later, another member of the Carter family died. They opened up the tomb to lay them to rest and found that the bodies of John and Wayne Carter were gone. No remains, no clothes, no trace that they have ever been there at all. New Orleans became gripped with the legend of these vampire brothers who could escape death itself. To this day, many sightings of the brothers have still been reported, especially around the apartment building that they once called home. Or perhaps they still do. They've just learned their lesson to keep things more hidden. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Murfreesboro Mud Monster. In 1973, a young couple went for a romantic drive near the town of Murfreesboro, Illinois. They parked up by the river. Later on, they heard a piercing roar, which they described as sounding like an eagle shrieking into a microphone. They quickly turned off the radio and scanned the area. Another horrific shriek came and the bush in front of them shook. They turned on the car lights to see a creature that would forever be burned into their memories. It was massive, wet, hairy, and covered in mud. Its skin was almost translucent, as if it was an albino. For the next 2 weeks, it terrorized people in the town. Reports of the 7-foot-tall swamp monster kept increasing until one day it just disappeared. After that, there have only been a few more reports of the Murfreesboro Mud Monster since. At the time, the local police chief said, "A lot of things in life are unexplained, and this is another one. We don't know what the creature is, but we do believe what these people saw was real." Moving on to number 9 now, we have the Little People's Village. In the woods of Connecticut, near the town of Middlebury, you can find the Little People's Village. Crumbling remains of tiny houses and structures that locals say were built for fairies. fairies. The story goes that many years ago, a man and his wife were living peacefully in Middlebury when she started seeing small fairy folk in the woods around their home. She demanded that her husband build them a tiny village, and so that's exactly what he did. Using real concrete and mortar, he built the fairies these tiny houses complete with walkways and streets. As the village grew, he suffered a price. People say that he began to hear the fairies' voices in his head, which eventually drove him to madness and then suicide. Now, they say the crumbling ruins of the Little People's village is haunted by the spirits of them, or even the ghosts of the people they drove insane. You can still visit the ruins today, and even sit in the throne that was carved at the request of the king of the Little People. However, legend says the seat is now cursed, and that if you sit in it, you will be dead within 7 years. Locals will show you how to get to the village of the Little People, but many also warn that if you linger there too long, you will hear the voices of the Little People, and you too will be plunged into insanity. Next up at number 8 now, we have the Kushtaka. These are mythical shape-shifting creatures found in the stories of Native Americans in southeastern Alaska. The name roughly translates to land otter man. The story says that these creatures will shift between the human form and the otter form at will. They are cruel creatures who take pleasure in tricking sailors to their deaths. If they're not at sea, they live in rivers and deploy a very creepy tactic to attract their prey. The Kushtaka are said to imitate the cries of a human baby or the screams of a woman in order to lure the victims to the river. Once there, the Kushtaka either kill the person by tearing them to shreds or turn them into a Kushtaka themselves. Legend says that they can be warded off by using copper, urine, dogs or fire. Some stories do tell of benevolent Kushtaka who will help people, but many feel it's simply not worth the risk to approach them if they ever do hear its cries in the Alaskan forest. Next up at number 7 now, we have the Spectre Moose. In Maine, people have been spotting a particular moose for over 100 years. This one stands out though, as they say it's spectral, a ghost moose if you will. It's also huge, standing some 10 to 15 feet high. It was first seen in the early 1900s when locals described it as a huge moose with a ghostly, dirty white colour and an enormous set of antlers. The coat of the animal is sometimes described as glowing faintly. The Spectre Moose was said to have an extremely acute sense of smell and hearing, as well as the ability to appear or disappear at will and to phase through solid objects. Hunters who came across it said they could never line up properly for a shot, as the moose would just blink in and out of existence before their very eyes. In 1938, a hunter said he saw it standing among a herd of other mises. Not sure. It was stood with 2 other large males, but it made them look like dwarves. He would have thought it was just a normal, humongous moose if it wasn't for the strange white glow around its body. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Betty Grease. In Michigan, on the beaches of Lake Superior, is a place where the sand is said to sing. Local legend says that a musical voice emanates from the sand, the voice of a Native American maid who lost her love to the Great Lakes and still calls to him from the shore when visitors play the sand. How exactly do you play the sand? Well, they say the sand can be made to sing by pressing down on it with the palm of your hand or a piece of bark. It loses its magical properties though when removed from the beach. I wasn't too sure what to make of this one at first, but I've seen a few videos on YouTube now and it definitely makes a very strange noise. Perhaps you guys check it out and see what you make of it. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Metro 2. This legend says that the Soviet Union constructed a secret metro system underneath Moscow. It was apparently ordered by Joseph Stalin and said to be connected directly to the Kremlin. The secret government usage is just the tip of the iceberg though. Many locals swear that strange hybrid human creatures lurk down there, the product of experiments in Soviet labs that were deemed too hideous to ever be seen by the public. Sympathetic scientists released these creatures into the hidden metro in the hopes they could live out somewhat of a normal life. For a while the public didn't believe the stories of people seeing these creatures scuttling out from the ground, but then several Soviet Union defectors came forward and swore the whole thing was real. Now many urban explorers are constantly on the hunt for Metro 2 and its mutant inhabitants. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Black Curtains. One day a girl's mother sent her to the store to buy some curtains for the house. She told her to not get black ones. Any other colour or type will do, but not black ones. Naturally, the shop the girl went to only had black curtains in stock. The girl decided to get them as they are surely better than no curtains anyway. The mother was not happy but agreed to put them up. The next morning, the family woke up to find that the father had been strangled in the night. The night after, the same thing happened to the girl's mother and brother. The police arrived and decided to set up a trap for whoever this mysterious strangler was. They hid inside the house as the girl went to bed. In the dead of night, they began to see the black curtains stretching, twisting and turning, reaching up towards the girl's bed and then around her neck. The police bust out and fired their guns at the curtains. The curtains let out a demonic screech as the bullets ripped through the black fabric, letting out a foul black liquid where blood should be. Then they fell to the floor, motionless. The girl survived. This story has left some people with a deep superstition of black curtains, maybe just to be safe. Next up at number 3 now, we have the haunted Kremlin. The Kremlin is the fortified hub of Moscow and has been the seat of Russia's leadership for many years. It was first built in the 15th century, and in the years since then it's built up a reputation for being incredibly haunted. People say the ghosts of former leaders still wander the corridors, doomed to haunt because of unfinished business in life. One example is Nicholas II, who appears before a Russian disaster occurs. Ivan the Terrible has been seen in the shadows and on the bell tower. Now they say he can't find peace as a ghost because he killed his own son, a deed that still haunts him in his afterlife. Even the famous Soviet leader Lenin is sighted at the Kremlin. What's even creepier is that his ghost was actually seen by several people even when he was still alive, but it was apparently unable to move, almost as if it was waiting for him to die. That's exactly what happened though, just 3 months later after the first sighting. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the Black Tram. One day a little boy in a small town was on his way home from school. It was a route he had done many times before, but for some reason on this day he found himself in an area he just didn't recognize. The streets were unfamiliar and empty, lined with different buildings and trees. The strangest thing was just how dark it was, even though it was daytime just minutes before. He saw a tram stop and decided to hop on one, hoping to get to somewhere he knew. The board with the routes on was strange though. Each tram was numbered with years. One said 1932 to 1958, another said 1983 to 1995. They reminded him of dates on a gravestone. Then a tram began rolling towards the stop. It was very old looking and moved almost silently. It was also a deep jet black in colour, like a hearse. As it came to a stop and the doors opened, the boy felt something pull him inside, like a gust of wind pushing him forwards. He shook it off and stepped back onto the street. Suddenly, the black tram was gone. He looked around and found himself on a lively street that he knew quite well. As he walked home, he suddenly remembered that the tram's number had been his birth year and the current year was next to it, flickering, waiting for him to step inside. Some people believe that the black trams are responsible for people's disappearances, pulling them in unless they have the willpower to fight back and live another day. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Golosov Ravine. This is a park in Moscow which is known to the people there as being built around very ancient stones said to be sacred and pure. Perhaps that's the reason the ravine has been home to many strange legends over the years. One of them tells of a group of Mongol soldiers who entered the ravine to explore it. A cloud of mist emerged and got thicker around them as they moved further into the ravine until it completely surrounded them. The soldiers left the ravine a few minutes later and found the land unrecognizable. 100 years had somehow passed. Locals believe that on these misty days, the Golosov Ravine becomes a sort of time portal. They say that explains the disappearances that have happened to people there ever since. People say they're not gone for good, and one day they will emerge in the future from the ravine as if no time had passed for them at all. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the red piano. The story goes like this. A little girl who wanted to play the piano got one on her birthday from her parents. She excitedly practiced for weeks on it, but one day her fingertips began to hurt. She was told this was totally normal and just bruising from over practice. If she kept going, then her fingers would get used to the pressure. The girl continued to practice, but it began to take its toll on her physically. She grew thinner and paler every single day. After a month of this, the piano broke. The only person in the town who could fix it was an old woman. When she arrived, she told the parents and the girl they needed to stay out of the room as she worked on the piano, as she didn't want any distractions. After a while she emerged. The piano was fixed. The girl went back to practicing, but after a few more days she became so weak again that she could barely walk across the room. The piano had broken again. The old lady arrived and again told them to leave while she worked. The parents were curious though about how she fixed the piano, and so they looked into the room through the keyhole. They saw the old lady open the piano and take a glass jar out filled with what looked like blood. Then she started to drink it. The parents called the police straight away, who came and arrested the old lady. They examined the piano and found that the piano keys had tiny needles built into them, so small they were practically invisible to the naked eye. As the girl played the piano, she suffered tiny cuts which drained her blood drop by drop into the jar. The piano was designed to break when the jar was full so that the old lady could come and drink her fill. Next up at number 9 now, we have Koschei the Deathless. In Russian folklore, this evil being is known as the kidnapper of brides. He is said to look like a skeleton wrapped in a thin, transparent film of skin. He resides in limbo between the world of the living and the world of the dead. He appears in stories throughout Russia as a sorcerer with endless wealth, kidnapping young girls to be his wives. In one tale, he turned an entire kingdom into a rock and another its people into frogs. He is also blind, and in order to see his enemies, he asks his servants to lift up his withered eyelids. He is seen by some as part of marital initiation. A bride may only marry once her groom has defeated this twisted being. Next up at number 8 now, we have the yellow curtains. One day a family of 4 moved into a new house which needed curtains. As they went to go and buy them, they remembered their recently deceased grandma hated yellow curtains and always told them to never ever get them, even after her death. Of course, as they walked around the market, all they saw was yellow curtains. After searching and searching for something else, they gave up and finally bought them. They brought them home and put them up in the room where the little boy and girl lives. That night the curtains began moving and woke the boy up. Then they started talking. "Hey boy, get up," they said. The boy got up. "Hey boy, go wash your face and eat breakfast." They continued. The boy did as he was told. "Hey boy, come to the window and see how your grandma's hanging up the laundry outside." The boy was puzzled but approached the window. At that exact moment, the curtains grabbed him and threw him out of the window to his death as the entire family slept. Then the curtains did the exact same thing to the girl. Police investigators found hairs on the curtains and tracked down the old lady who had sold them the curtains. The old lady broke down and said she would help. She said the only thing these curtains were scared of was a magic scalpel hidden inside the giant star on top of the Kremlin. The police retrieved this scalpel and took it to the curtains, where they went to cut a piece of it off for examination. No sooner had the scalpel touched the curtains than they exploded. No trace of them was ever found. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the coffin on wheels. This story starts off with the little girl's mother, who was very ill. In her final days, she told her daughter that if she died, the girl should never paint her nails with red varnish. The mother died, and in the girl's grief, she dismissed what her mother had told her. She thought it was just the illness talking. After some time, the girl completely forgot her mother's warning and painted her nails red one day. As she finished, the radio flickered on and a demonic voice said, "Hey, little girl, remove the varnish from your nails. A coffin on wheels has found your town and is looking for your street." The girl was confused and thought it just must be a glitch. She turned the TV on, but the same voice came out instantly. "Hey, little girl, the coffin on wheels has found your street and is looking for your house. Take off your nail polish." Terrified, the girl scrubbed her nail polish off and rushed to the phone to call her friend. Instead of her friend's voice though, she heard the same voice. "Hey, little girl, the coffin on wheels is at your house. Now it's looking for your door. Take off your nail polish." She threw the phone down and kept trying to scrub, but the polish wouldn't come off. She heard a knock at the door, but couldn't see anyone through the peephole. She opened the door, and there was the coffin on wheels. It slowly opened, and her mother stepped out. "Why didn't you listen to me?" she screamed, and then she strangled her daughter to death. This story alone has kept the scary legend of the coffin on wheels alive. Next up, number 6 now, we have the Old Woman of Ostankino. This legend is of a ghostly figure who is said to appear in the Ostankino district of Moscow. It's not a new legend either. The ghost of this old woman has been appearing to people for over 5 centuries. Other than appearing to ordinary Russians, she is said to appear to powerful Russian leaders to warn them of coming danger. She would share clear insight on coming plagues or even foreign invaders. All she asks for in return is that they never farm the land on which she appears on. Legend says that one leader didn't listen to her and ordered that the land be farmed on. The old woman called up the spirits that occupied the land and made them possess the local people, driving them to insanity and then suicide. It's been years since then, but some locals say she is still capable of doing the same. Moving on to number 5 now, we have mirrors. It's a common held belief in some parts of Vietnam that mirrors have a supernatural quality to them which can be used as a help or as a curse. It's believed that mirrors are a portal to the spirit world. This can be used as a defense against evil spirits. It's not uncommon to see mirrors hung on people's doors. The idea for this is that an evil spirit will approach the door and be scared away by the mirror, not wanting to slip through the portal as it passes through the door. However, mirrors aren't always tools for good. Some Vietnamese believe that if you stare into a mirror too long, a reflection can actually take your place and you will be the one who ends up in the mirror. You won't realize it until you go to step away and then suddenly blink out of existence, forced to wait in the mirror until the real you returns. You'll be forced to copy their movements exactly and nobody will ever be able to see you screaming out for help through your eyes. Next up, at number 4 now, we have the Tuan Kio Plaza. In the heart of Saigon's busy Chinatown district is a series of 3 towers. Each one stands 33 floors tall. Buildings A and B are completely deserted and building C has just a few people living there. During its construction in the late 1980s, some of the workers died due to poor safety standards. No compensation was offered to the families, and so one of them put an ancient curse on the site called a low ban. The accidents and problems only got worse from then. People blamed it on the curse. Then the ghost stories started coming. One involved a taxi driver who got a call from one of the abandoned buildings. He went anyway, but when he arrived at the place, it was of course completely empty. He called the girl on the other end of the phone, but all he could hear was heavy breathing and muffled screams. He drove away, terrified. When he asked local people about it, they said it was most likely the ghost of a girl who was murdered by her boyfriend on the site in 2005. There are many stories like this, only adding to just how deserted and creepy this plaza really is. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the lonely ghosts. There is a belief among some people in Vietnam that if people die alone, they will stay near where they died as ghosts because nobody was there to guide their spirits to the afterlife. They could have died alone on a road, maybe their family didn't even know of their death, or a person may have just died with no family at all, like an orphan. If someone had a violent death, as spirits they'll be mischievous, not always evil but often violent. September is known as the ghost month of Vietnam, and during that whole time you can see people burning paper money in rusty buckets in the hopes of appeasing the lonely ghosts. Next up, at number 2 now, we have the Tao Dan Park. This 10-hectare park in Saigon is beautiful by day, attracting many tourists who wander around its green gardens and shady tall trees. If you dig a bit deeper though, you'll find that some people consider this to be the most haunted park in all of Vietnam. The story goes that over 10 years ago, a man and his girlfriend were having a picnic in the park when they were brutally attacked. The man was killed, but the woman managed to survive and escape. Officials say there is only actually one recorded case of a murder in the park. It was of a young man called Tuan in 1989. He was trying to sell his motorbike and asked his friend Hung to help. Instead of this, Hung and another accomplice killed Tuan and took the bike for themselves. Locals say that whichever one of these is true, the cold-blooded murder that was committed has stained the park forever, and the spirits of the victims remain. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Singing Girl. For many years there was only really one official place in Saigon to bury the dead, Bin Hung Hua Cemetery. Because of this concentration of dead people, many believe this is one of the most haunted places in Vietnam. Perhaps one of the most famous stories is that of the Singing Girl. There was once a 16-year-old girl who lived in the area. She was known for her love of Kai Lung, a well-known singer in Vietnam. The girl fell for a singer from a local theatre. However, her father didn't approve of their love due to the singer's lowly background, and so he forced him to enroll in the army in the hopes of separating the couple. A few months passed and the girl was heartbroken to learn that her love had died in the war. She was furious at her father and so hurt by her lover's death that she took her own life by jumping into the pond in that cemetery. Her body wasn't found until 6 days later. Ever since that fateful day, on every night with a full moon, locals will swear they see her standing in the moonlight on the edge of the water, mournfully singing her favourite singer's song. song. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the ghost tape number 10. During the Vietnam War, it's claimed that the US came up with a very creepy new tactic in their fight against the Viet Cong. With the help of the South Vietnamese, the US Army created scary messages that sounded like voices of the dead. Along with shrieks, screams and moans, a dead Viet Cong soldier pleads with his comrades, saying things like, "My friends, I have come back to let you know that I am dead. I am dead." And also, "Don't end up like me. Go home, friends, before it's too late." American helicopters blasted this ghost tape all over the jungle to make it sound like the voices were coming from everywhere around them. This was intended to do more than just scare them. The US Army was playing on the strongly held Vietnamese belief that the spirits of the dead are doomed to walk the earth in their own personal hell if their bodies are not found and properly buried. It was hoped that this fear could be instilled in the Viet Cong and convince them to give up the fight or meet the same fate as the ghostly voices. Next up at number 9 now, we have the pregnant ghost. In December 2001, a house caught fire in Saigon which took the life of 7 family members. The fire started in the early morning and quickly engulfed the first floor, which was also a showroom for the family's motorbike shop. People living nearby were woken up by the smell of burning plastic tires. The family tried to escape but found the only way was through the balcony. One by one people jumped down, but then a pregnant woman stepped forward onto the balcony. She was the daughter of the owners. The upper floor wasn't that high, so everybody urged her to just jump, but she was too scared. She stepped back from the balcony towards the flames and was never seen again. By the time the fire was put out the next day, the pregnant woman could not be found. In the years since then, locals swear that on certain nights you can see the ghost of the pregnant woman standing there on the balcony. Even though she is already dead, they say you can see the fear in her eyes as she looks down at the ground, clutches her baby and steps back into the flames that went out years ago. Moving on to number 8 now, we have apartment 727. This building used to be a symbol of luxury in Saigon, the tallest millionaire residence they called it. It's divided into 6 blocks with 530 rooms, but despite the grand plans of the past, it now lies almost completely abandoned. Simple reason might be people believe it's haunted. In the 1960s, there were a lot of US officers living there. Now, locals claim they see military ghost parades and the shadow of a blonde American soldier holding hands with a Vietnamese girl. They believe this is down to the spirit of the 4 virgins in the building. The legend goes that during the construction of the hotel, everything was going smoothly until the last floor of the building, where many deaths and accidents just kept occurring. The owners stopped construction for 3 days to set up an altar. People say they were advised by a Chinese exorcist to bring in the bodies of 4 virgin women. They then buried the bodies in the 4 corners of the building in order to exorcise whatever demon or curse was holding up construction. It seemed to work and the building was completed, but locals say that this act is the exact reason the building is so haunted today. No soul wants to live there anymore. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Batutut. Every country seems to have some sort of Bigfoot story. Well, this is Vietnam's. This ape-like creature is said to wander the forested hills of Vietnam. Many locals have reported seeing it for a number of years now. It gained wider attention when US servicemen returned from the Vietnam War with the same stories of this creature. The first documented Batutut sighting was in 1947 by a Dr. John McKinnon in the Vu Quang Nature Reserve. Dr. McKinnon was searching the area for undiscovered wildlife and came across tracks which he identified as hominid, a human-like creature. He said it stood around 6 feet in height. The creature is said to have hair covering its entire body except for its hands, feet and face. Hair color can vary from grey to brown to black. They've been observed walking on 2 legs and also both alone and in small social groups. Those who claim to be experts say they forage for fruit and leaves but also hunt small prey. However, there is no evidence beyond eyewitness accounts, and so for now the Batutut remains an intriguing legend. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the meat eater. The story goes like this. In a small town in Vietnam, the houses were very packed together. This was many years ago when people didn't have a fridge, so to keep their meat fresh, the only way was to put salt on the meat and store it in their backyard kitchens. They didn't have any special container, so they just left it on a shelf. One night, a housewife of a family stored their meat on the shelf. The next morning, a piece of it was missing. Furious, she went round and asked the family where it was. Nobody knew. That night she put the meat on a different shelf to make sure nobody would take it away. The next morning she went to the backyard and again she found the meat missing. She complained to her husband, and that night the couple stayed up to try and catch the culprit. When night came, they sat by the window overlooking their backyard. Just after 1 a.m. they saw the shadow of a woman jump over the fence. They realized it was the old woman from next door. When they went out to catch her, they were shocked to see she already had the meat in her hands and was biting into it raw with a crazed look in her eyes. She looked possessed and was tearing the meat apart with sharp teeth and fangs. After finishing up the meat, she leapt back over the fence. The next day they confronted the old woman's family about what had happened. They refused to believe their grandmother could ever have done this. The next day the couple had to leave town for some business, so they left their 1-year-old baby at home with a babysitter. They returned around 1 a.m. just in time to hear a loud scream coming from the baby's room. They rushed upstairs to find their worst fears had come true. They had left no meat in the backyard that night, and so the possessed old woman had climbed into the room and was now biting on the baby's arm, her face pale and fangs dripping. They attacked her, and so she jumped out of the window. The whole village helped to hunt the old woman down. They eventually found her on top of a house. They tried but failed to get her down and decided the only way was to burn the building down. The old woman now transformed into her demonic form. She laughed and laughed until the roof collapsed from the fire and she fell into the flames, letting out a blood-curdling evil scream and then silence, only the crackling of wood. The next day all they found in the ashes was a very small skull. The old woman's family had already disappeared, leaving the village with more questions than answers and a terrifying story to pass down the generations. Next up now at number 5 we have the Bunny Man. This one sounds cute, right? You guys might have thought we were taking a quick break from scary halfway through the video. Oh no! It's just getting worse. The Bunny Man legend began with 2 incidents in Fairfax County in 1970. The first came from Air Force Cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée. On October 9th, the couple were returning from a football game around midnight. They parked up to visit a relative when out of nowhere a figure ran up to the back of their car and smashed the front passenger window in. They looked up to see a man in a white suit with long bunny ears. The Bunny Man screamed that they were on private property and trespassing. The couple sped away and later found a hatchet that was used to smash the window on the floor of their car. 10 days later, a construction man called Paul Phillips was on the same road. He approached a man standing on the porch of an unfinished home. He described him as wearing a grey, black and white bunny costume. The Bunny Man began chopping at a porch post with a long-handled axe, saying, "All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you on the head." The police investigation was closed due to the lack of evidence, but more than 50 other people came forward claiming to have seen the Bunny Man, many of them on that same stretch of road. Even to this day, locals have reported seeing freshly skinned rabbit carcasses hanging from the overpass of what is now known as Bunny Man Bridge, a sure sign that this axe-wielding fiend is nearby, waiting to bust you on the head. Next up at number 4 now, we have Mamie Thurman. On June 22nd, 1931, the body of a young woman was found slain near the town of Rogan. Her neck was broken, her throat cut from ear to ear, and she had been shot twice in the head at close range. The motive or culprit was a complete mystery. The whole town was shocked. A local handyman was convicted of the crime, but there was still a lot of questions. Her death certificate states that she was buried in Logan Memorial Park, but her funeral home records said her body was transported to Kentucky. However, the cemetery in Kentucky has no record of her interment. One night after her funeral, it was also said that a local businessman paid $1,000 to move her body to a different location altogether. To this day, it remains a mystery where exactly she was buried. According to local folklore, many claim that her ghost now wanders the hills, searching for the person who took her life, as the handyman was not to blame. Others said she waits on that same road, waiting for justice. Many have seen her there, saying she hitchhikes with truck drivers only to vanish into thin air. People who park on the hill say they felt her push the car up. Nice, but no thanks. Next up at number 3 now, we have Screaming Jenny. The story goes like this. Along some railroads in West Virginia, there were some abandoned old storage sheds. The poor had moved in there to escape the harsh winters. A sweet woman called Jenny lived there. She had fallen on hard times, never had enough to eat, and the small fires barely kept her alive. Still, she did everything she could to help those around her. On one cold autumn evening, she sat shivering over her fire when a spark flew out and lit her wool skirt on fire. She was so busy eating her broth that she didn't notice until the fire began to scorch right down to her skin. She leapt up and threw the broth all over herself, but that didn't stop the fire. She began screaming along the tracks, begging for help as the flames engulfed her whole body. She ran for the nearby train station, hoping someone there could help, but by now she was a glowing inferno, a ball of fire that looked barely human. In her pain and confusion, she didn't see the train rounding the curve ahead of her. Her scream stopped as the train mowed her down. The station crew found her dead, still burning. They put her out, gave her a funeral, and buried Jenny in the local graveyard. She was quickly forgotten. Then, a month later, another train was rounding the curve on the tracks when it hit another screaming ball of fire. The crew expected to see another mangled body burning, but this time there was nothing there. It's been that way ever since. Train drivers in the area say they still see Screaming Jenny, especially on the anniversary of her death. It seems she's locked in an eternal loop, still desperate for the help she needed in her final moments. Next up at number 2 now we have the Ogua. Quite simply, the Ogua is a river monster. It's said to lurk in the waters of the Monongahela River in Marion County. Its legend goes back to Native American tribes who lived along the riverbanks there many years ago. It's said to be a serpentine creature of up to 500 pounds in weight with a reddish brown colour and deadly razor sharp teeth. It's also amphibious and has been known to clamber onto land if it needs to. It stays hidden in the waters during the day, coming onto land at night to hunt for prey. Apparently it even hunts deer. Yeah, fully grown deer. It waits along their paths and then thrashes them into submission with its tail before dragging them into the river to devour. Of course, if it can bring down a deer, it wouldn't have much trouble with a human. Some people don't even go near the places where it's sighted, at least not alone. And finally, number 1 now we have Droop Mountain. On this mountain, there was once a very fierce battle during the American Civil War. Many lost their lives, and the blood spilled that day is said to have soaked into the very mountain itself, changing it forever. They say the cries of war still linger on Droop Mountain, forever lost in time. Visitors have reported that something just feels off when you're up there. At night, there is no mistaking it at all. One woman who was raised beside the mountain reported seeing a man standing up on the old battlefield. His body glowed in the darkness, and to her astonishment, he had no head. Whenever they shone a light on him, he disappeared. Another time, the woman was walking with her husband and cousins when the whole group stopped in their tracks. Up there again on the old battlefield was a transparent soldier on his horse. The soldier seemed to notice them before turning away and vanishing into the trees. Even skeptics have reported seeing the figure of a headless man drifting along. Those who have got close say he is wearing a Confederate uniform. Now others say his head isn't actually missing, it's just been shot off. To be honest, I'm not really sure which one of those is scarier. But either way, I don't think I'd head up Droop Mountain at night by myself. We're jumping right into the deep end with our number 10, the Mothman. Let's go back to November 12th, 1966. 5 men were digging a grave at a cemetery in Clenadin when they claimed they saw a man-like figure fly out of the trees and over their heads. 3 days later, 2 young couples from Point Pleasant told police they saw a large creature with red glowing eyes in their car headlights. They described it as a large flying man with 10-foot wings. It was following them near an old World War II munitions plant. The legend of the Mothman was born. In the days after, more people reported seeing him. 2 firemen described it as a large bird with red eyes. About 90 miles away, a man from Salem said he saw a creature in the back of his barn with 2 red circle eyes like bicycle reflectors. For the next year, everyone was on edge, expecting to see the Mothman swooping down on them at any moment. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. Now, engineers blamed a defect in the suspension chain. Others said the Mothman sightings had something to do with it. As the years went by, experts tried to explain away all the different sightings, saying it was hallucinations or sleep paralysis. The Mothman story went cold for about 50 years. Then, in November 2016, WCHS TV published a photo from an anonymous man that people claimed was the Mothman. See for yourself what you make of this famous urban legend picture. If you're excited to play the next Fallout game, it might not be that long till you meet the Mothman for yourself. Next up at number 9 now, we have the Snarly Yow. Some call this the Vanishing Dog, the Black Dog, or even the Dog Fiend. Whatever people in West Virginia call it though, this phantom dog has been seen by a lot of people. It's described as large, black, and teeth-bearing, appearing in front of people's cars on the dark mountain roads, but when they hit it and get out to check, the dog has disappeared into thin air. It was first sighted in the early 1800s, where it would chase people on horseback, in carriages, or donkey carts. It has continued this habit into modern times, only now it can be seen keeping pace with cars going at 55 miles per hour. If be told, Locals don't really know how fast this thing can actually go. Although many people have reported seeing the creature, it has never actually harmed anyone as of yet. This kind of unnerves some people though, who worry, what does it really want from the people it terrorizes? Moving on to number 8 now, we have the sheep squatch. This one is also known as the white creature, a monster said to roam the Kanawha Valley. It's been described as a bear with the shape of a dog, if you can imagine that. It has huge saber-like fangs. Its wool is a dirty white colour, hence the sheep part of its name. Despite its lumbering appearance, the creature is fast, moving at lightning speed. Perhaps what's most creepy is its tendency to switch from 4 legs to 2 when it moves, making it seem very human-like. Their screams in the night have been compared to the sound of someone being murdered. Then there are the attacks. Here's where things get really weird. People always say that the creature jumps on them like a wolf, sinking its teeth right into their flesh, making them howl out in pain, but then when the attack is over, they look down to find there is not a single mark on their body. That's better news than an actual mortal wound, I guess, but most people who have seen the sheep squatch hope to never again. Next up at number 7 now, we have the Flatwoods Monster. Some also call this the Green Monster or the Phantom of Flatwoods. The legend of it began in 1952 after a group of children claimed they saw a UFO crash behind a hill not far from the town. They went out and told Kathleen May, a local hairdresser, who came with them to inspect the crash site. From the top of the hill, they saw a pulsing red light. Then their flashlights landed on what they described as a man-like figure with a round red face surrounded by a pointed hood-like shape. They said he was 10 foot tall. His eyes emitted greenish orange light. His body was dark green in colour. Kathleen May said it had small claw-like hands and a head that resembled the ace of spades. According to the group, it made a hissing sound as it approached them. One of the kids dropped the flashlight in fear and they all fled the scene. Some have said the sighting was nothing more than a common barn owl, but many in the town believe it to be true. Even the welcome sign says Flatwoods is the home of the Green Monster. Next up at number 6 now, we have the Grafton Monster. As the name might suggest, this comes from the old railroad town of Grafton. There may not be room for a mysterious creature among the many buildings and houses there, but the place is surrounded by dense woodland, and that's where locals say the Grafton Monster lurks. Ever since the 1960s, people have reported seeing a man-like creature resembling Bigfoot or the skunk ape. They say it stands between 7 and 9 feet tall and is cloaked in pale skin that is slick to the touch, kind of like a seal or dolphins. Local farmers report it the most, saying it tears down their fences and strips their trees of fruit. Those who have got close enough described it as being able to run extremely fast and having a foul odour. Perhaps the strangest description, although rarer than the rest, is that the Grafton Monster is headless. Others say witnesses are mistaken and it only appears headless because it tucks its head low to its chest. Some say you'll know it's near when it lets out a low whistle through the trees. For our number 5 with the Crying Girl. On November 18th, 1987, a match was dropped on an escalator at London's King Cross station. A fire quickly spread into the nearby ticket office, which resulted in the death of 31 people. In the years since then, passengers have reported seeing a girl who died around the station. She has long brown hair, wears jeans and a t-shirt, and is always crying. Some people have even reported hearing her sobs while smelling smoke coming out from the escalators. Back to Scotland now for our number 4 with Sawney Bean. This is the gruesome tale of Alexander Sawney Bean, a man who was said to be the head of a Scottish clan of cannibals in medieval times. According to legend, the group was made up of his wife, their 14 children and 32 grandchildren, some of whom were born through incest. They lived in a cave by the water and would ambush people on the road at night. They would bring their bodies back to the cave to then dismember and eat them. Any leftovers were pickled in a jar for later. When King James VI of Scotland eventually heard of these murders, he led a manhunt to capture them. The clan was caught and then executed. Some people say you can still find the cave along the Benane Head area of Scotland. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Cane Hill. Some say this is one of the most haunted places in England. It was a mental asylum for over 100 years from 1882 to 1991. It built up a reputation for abandoning some of its patients, hiding them away from the public eye and never truly helping them. Some people say the patients who died left their energy behind there because of their tortured lives. The building was gutted by a mysterious fire in 2010. Perhaps the scariest stories of all are of the faces appearing by the burnt out windows. Next up at number 2 now, we have the House of the Screaming Skull. This one comes from Bettiscombe Manor in Dorset, England. The legend goes that in 1830, a man lived there called John Frederick Pinney. He had a slave that he had brought back from the Caribbean island of Nevis. The man became ill, and on his deathbed he swore he would never rest unless his body was was returned home to Nevis. Pinney refused to pay for that expense, and when he died, he had the man buried in the local graveyard. After that, ill fortune began to plague the village for months. Screams and cries were heard from the cemetery. At the manor house, windows rattled and doors kept slamming. The body was dug up and brought to the manor house, where today only the skull remains, where it's said to haunt the manor, but the village remains safe. And finally, at number 1 now, we have the Hellhounds. Dartmoor is a vast, rocky, windy and mysterious part of England. It's popular among tourists, but everyone who goes there is aware of the legend of the Hellhounds. It's said that a pack of these ghost dogs wanders the moors at night, preying on sheep, and they're not afraid of humans. They've often been described as cat-like, but with the frame of a bear, and very fast. There have been pictures and film taken of them over the years that claim to show glimpses of these hellhounds in action. Many of the locals don't even need that though. They've heard the stories handed down from generation to generation. Some of them even say they've seen the hounds with their own 2 eyes. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the corpse train. Now, according to London folklore, in the early 1900s there was a train that ran underneath the city, and it was only for dead people. Back then, London's hospitals and morgues were struggling to deal with the vast amount of people that were dying from poverty and disease. They decided to transport the bodies out of the city, but knew that they couldn't do it overground without disturbing a lot of people. So they used an existing train line to load the bodies onto. The train ran just the other side of a wall from the normal daily service, where unsuspecting Londoners were getting on and off their trains unaware of the nearby bodies. Next up at number 9 now, we have the suicide pool. This one comes from Epping Forest near Essex. The story goes that years ago, a young couple in love were followed to a pond in the forest by the girl's father. When the couple finally embraced, the father leapt from the trees to confront the boy. The fight got out of hand, and the father ended up killing the boy in a rage at the edge of the pool. The waters then turned black. Wildlife that was touching the water died instantly. In the years that followed, bodies started to appear in the water. First it was an old woman, then a young one with her young child beside her. They say the pool drew them into their death, and that the pool is still out there in the forest somewhere waiting for its next victim. Next up at number 8 now, we have Annie. This one comes from Edinburgh, Scotland. In the old town there lies a street known as Mary King's Close. It's steeped in myths and legends of hauntings and murders. In 1990, a psychic called Aiko Gibo visited and felt a small hand touch hers. She said that she then made contact with the spirit of a dead child called Annie, who had died in a plague hundreds of years ago and had lost her doll. The psychic then went to a nearby shop and brought back a Barbie doll for her. Now since then, visitors leave dolls for Annie, and a mountain of them has built up in the dark. Moving on to number 7 now, we have the Faceless Woman. This one comes from the borough of Barking in London. There you can find Beacon Tree Station, home to the Faceless Woman. The most famous sighting of her happened in 1992. A station supervisor reported that on one night he heard the handle of his office door rattle. Outside on the platform stood a woman. She had blonde hair, she wore a very pale dress and just stared into the distance. The supervisor approached her, but as he reached out, she turned to him only to reveal she had no face, just darkness where there should be one. Local ghost hunters claim that she is the victim of a train crash that happened there in 1958, which killed 10 people. At number 6 now, we have the Beast. England's Hackney Marshes is known for its sprawling woodland and boggy reed marshes often covered in swirling fog, the perfect setting for this urban legend. The story goes that in 1980, 2 bear carcasses were found in the river. They had been decapitated. People started speculating about who or what could cut a bear's head clean off its shoulders. Then a year later, 4 boys were taking a walk along the marsh one winter morning when they saw it through the trees. They described it as a giant, great, growling, hairy thing. As soon as it saw them, it reared up on its back legs and let out a deafening roar. The boys ran, but the story remains always in the back of people's minds as they trudged through the marsh. We're returning now to the London Underground. Next up at number 5 now, we have the Puebla's secrets. For many years, longer than people can even remember, the people of Puebla in Mexico have talked about the tunnels. Secret tunnels that were built under their city by the Spanish conquistadors in the 1500s. It's been almost half a millennia since then, and the stories became legend. People looked for them, but they found nothing. The tunnels became a myth, something to scare the kids into believing there was a dark maze of caverns beneath them. In 2014, construction workers were in the middle of an urban remodeling project when they stumbled upon an old tunnel. Surely the legends weren't true. The Puebla History Center took over the site to investigate, and yes, it was the fabled tunnels people had spoken about. They determined the tunnels were built in 1531, right after the city was founded. Members of the Catholic Church supposedly used the tunnels to transport treasure and other property in and out of the city without people knowing about it. Part of the tunnels are now open to the public, giving you the chance to walk through the dark halls of an urban legend that came true. Coming in number 4 now, guys, we have the alligators. I definitely talked about this one in our New York urban legends video. Many years ago in New York, people would say that there were alligators in the sewers below the city. They said a young boy once flushed his pet alligator down the toilet. Years later, he reached into the sewer grate to retrieve a lost baseball. At that moment, a fully grown alligator leapt up from below and ripped his arm clean off, the same alligator he had flushed away. Many people dismissed the whole story. Alligators, New York, crazy. However, in 1959, Teddy May, the commissioner of New York during the time of these rumors, wrote about the alligators in his tell-all book. He said that he and his inspectors did find alligators in the New York sewers in 1935. They were up to 2 feet in size. It took 2 years for them to clear them all out, more than enough time for the facts to get blurred with fiction. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the dog boy. For many people in Arkansas, they know the stories of the dog boy. Kids swap tales of a werewolf-like man who roams around the town of Quitman. Some even say they've seen him. Many of them might not know that the story is somewhat based in real life. Gerald Bettis was born in Quitman in 1954. By the time he was a young boy, the neighbors were already calling him evil. They said he liked to capture stray animals and torture them in twisted experiments. As he got older, he turned on his parents, tormenting them until, at the age of 27, his dead father was found in his home. The newspapers said it was illness, but others said it was murder. Berris then kept his mother in the house until she was finally taken away and placed in protective custody. His mother testified against him and he was given life in prison, where he died a few years later. They say that his spirit still haunts that house and that he's often seen roaming the area as a ghost on all fours with shaggy hair like a dog. At the number 2 spot now, guys, we have Charlie No Face. Some of you may have heard me talk about this one in my Pennsylvanian video. Charlie No Face is the story of a boy called Charlie who once got electrocuted while climbing on an electric pole to try and see into a bird's nest. He was horrifically disfigured. His face had practically melted off. Eyes, nose, mouth, one of his ears and one of his arms all completely gone. It also turned his skin a sickly green. Somehow he survived and lived out his life in the small town, rarely showing his face to the other locals. People would share the story of Charlie No Face, but because nobody saw him, the story became nothing more than an urban legend. But it wasn't. The story was actually true, all except for the name. Charlie's real name was Raymond Robinson. He was friendly to people whenever they saw him, and he wasn't responsible for the many hauntings that became associated with the legend. And finally, number 1 now, we have Polybius. You may remember this from my video game Urban Legends video. Polybius was the name of an arcade game which kids in Portland got addicted to in 1981. Whenever they were forced off it, they felt nauseous, stressed, or even had seizures. Some people noticed the game was being serviced a lot more than usual. Instead of once a month, Polybius was being checked by men in black suits every single week. They would copy its hard drive, leave all of the money, and then be gone until the next week. People believed they were from the CIA and that Polybius was all part of a mind control program that sent subliminal messages to its players. Well, a lot of this is debatable. There really was a kid who got sick during an arcade marathon contest in Portland in 1981. A few days after that, federal agents really did seize a load of arcade cabinets. They said it was all part of a major gambling bust. This is where people tend to differ in opinion. Some say that the story of Polybius was inspired by the events, others say the events are proof of the story. Urban legends and truth. Together they make something better than either of them, I think. Is this the start of a new series? Shall we look at more creepy urban legends that have their stories rooted in true events, or shall we just keep doing our world tour of urban legends? Is this going to split the viewers in half? We'll find out in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always, guys. My name is Danny Burke and I will see you all in the next video. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Cropsey. Some of you guys may have heard me talk about this one before. It's the story of the boogeyman of Staten Island. He was rumored to be a homicidal maniac who escaped from a mental asylum. He would hunt for children and drag them back to the ruins of a hospital where he lived. Witnesses always said that he had a hook for a hand. These stories were meant to scare kids, perhaps even told to them by their own parents who wanted them to be more wary of strangers. Then, in 1972, the boogeyman boogeyman became real. News broke of a real-life corpsey man called Andre Rand. He was a former janitor at the local school for mentally disabled children. Rand was arrested in connection with the disappearance of Jennifer Schweiger, a 12-year-old girl with Down syndrome. He lost his job over the case and moved into the now abandoned school that he used to work in. He was eventually convicted of murder, and police connected him to the disappearance of 4 other children. No bodies were ever recovered. Moving on now to number 9, guys, we have the Bunny Man. I talked about this legend in my West Virginia video, if you remember. The story goes that in 1904 a mental asylum closed down. While transferring inmates to a new facility, one of the buses crashed. Most of the people in it were killed or captured trying to escape, but one actually did escape, known as the Bunny Man. He would then roam the land, hunting rabbits and then leaving their half-eaten carcasses for the locals to find. Sometimes they will be hanging from a tree or a bridge. Although there are parts of the story that just don't add up, something strange happened in 1970. A couple driving their car at night had an axe thrown through their window by a man in a bunny suit. 2 weeks later, another man found an axe-wielding guy in a bunny suit chopping wood nearby who was gone by the time police arrived. Are these linked together somehow? Is there more truth to this than meets the eye? Moving on now to number 8, we have the body under the bed. Ever since hotels and motels have become a common part of society, people have swapped stories about guests who discovered that the mattress they were sleeping on was either above or even stuffed with the body of a murder victim. A grisly tale for sure, but one that was confined to the realms of myths and legend. Then, in 1999, a case in Colorado occurred involving a couple who slept on a mattress containing a body. The police kept the details of that close to their chest, but in 2010 a huge story broke when guests at a Memphis motel discovered they had been sleeping above the body of Sony Millbrook, a missing person at the time. Her boyfriend, Lakeith Moody, was convicted of the crime. Many people were horrified and vowed to give their hotel beds a closer inspection next time. Next up at number 7 now, guys, we have the Maine Robber. That's M-A-I-N-E. The state. For many years, visitors to Maine's North Pond have reported that something strange was going on there. Time after time, people reported that things were going missing. Not just one person, one time, many people, many times. Batteries and food would vanish from cabins, while flashlights just disappeared from camping tents. People thought either the earth itself was swallowing it all up, or there was a thief at work. It turns out they were right about that. In 2013, a game warden discovered Christopher Knight living alone in the woods. For 27 years, this man had been there watching hikers, canoeists and other visitors to the area. When taken in for questioning, Knight admitted that he was responsible for around 40 robberies a year. I mean, stealing batteries is one thing, but I feel like if you were being watched all those years and then you were proven right about it, that would be even creepier. At the number 6 spot now, we have the Falling Lawyer. Now, I've lived in Toronto for quite a few years now, and I've personally heard this story floating around the place, but I never thought it was actually true until now. They say that years ago there was a lawyer who loved to show off how strong his office windows were in his building that overlooked the city. Every time someone came to visit, he would take a long run up, jump, and hurl himself right into the window. Sure enough, the window would remain intact, although we'll never know if this actually impressed his visitors. Well, this lawyer was real, and his name was Gary Hoy. He was a senior partner at his firm with an office on the 24th floor. On July 9th, 1993, some law students came to visit. He took his usual leap at the window, but this time, after years of it being weakened, it smashed. Gary plummeted to his death, and the improbable story became somewhat of a local legend. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Skogsra. In ancient Swedish folklore, the Skogsra are forest spirits. From the front, they look like a beautiful woman, but from the back, they resemble a tree trunk. There are stories of men who were entranced by these spirits without ever seeing their true form from the back. The Skogsra wear the men down over days and weeks, draining them until they are hopeless, playing on their temptations, their fears, and fantasies. If they manage to outsmart the spirit, the men will see their true form from behind, and the Skogsra will disappear forever. If they do not, they are carried off into the woods at their weakest, never to be seen again. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Millingar. These are said to be the undead corpses of ghosts of infants murdered by their mothers. They haunt the places where they were buried with cries that pierce the night air. Why do they cry? Well, they want you to give them a name. They were often babies that were said to be killed before receiving a name, and now that's all they want. They'll ask you to carry them to hallowed ground to be buried. They then grow in size as you get closer. There have been stories of these undead babies asking people for other tasks on the road at night. If they don't perform the tasks, the person will often return home to find a member of their family has been killed, often in the same theme as the original request. I will go into some of the details I saw, but they really are gruesome. All you guys need to know is that they are zombie babies. Not two words you want to hear together. Coming at number 3 now, we have the Neek. Also known as the Nokken or Niken. This is a mysterious water creature that always crops up in Scandinavian folklore. In Swedish tradition, the Neek lives in freshwater lakes and deep ponds. They are shapeshifters and will often transform into a handsome young man. They then trick women into jumping into the water before drowning them. There are also other versions of the legend that involve him changing into a white horse to let children ride on his back before jumping into his pond to drown them too. Some people believe the only way to save yourself is to throw metal in the water, something like a needle or an iron cross. Next up at number 2 now, we have Stockholm's Royal Palace. As you might expect from a palace, this place is huge. Many of its 1,400 rooms come with some of Sweden's most famous ghost stories. Among them is the White Lady. Her name in real life was Vita Frun. She is said to appear anytime a member of Sweden's royal family dies. King Oscar once wrote that she is tall, wears a long white dress with a white veil and dark gloves. She wanders the rooms and hallways clutching a ring of keys which jangle and echo in the night. In 1971, Princess Eugenie saw the White Lady 3 days before the death of Queen Louise. Over half a century before that, she was also said to appear as Princess Margaret lay dying. Despite not actually being dead yet, a guard saw the White Lady standing on the roof of the palace, keys in hand. 2 hours later, the princess was dead. And finally, number 1 now, we have Svenholm Castle. This is another castle in southern Sweden known for its high concentration of ghosts. Perhaps the most famous is King Frederick II, who is said to wander the halls at night searching for his long lost love who he never married. Then there are 3 ladies. In previous urban legend videos, you guys may have heard me talk about a castle or a house with the White Lady or the Black Lady or maybe the Grey Lady ghost, things like that. Well, how about all 3 of them? That's right. Visitors to Svenholm Castle have reported 3 separate ghost ladies. Some even say they compete for each other's territory. Another regular on the scene is said to be the Grey Monk, who was murdered in the castle in the 1500s and now occasionally helps staff carry heavy items up the stairs from the cellars. Is that not the most helpful ghost you've ever heard of? I say all ghosts should be put to work. Just kidding. Let them do their thing. Starting off number 10 now, we have the Silver Train. This is a true ghost train story. Locals call it the Silver Pilen. In Sweden's capital of Stockholm, legend says that passengers waiting on the platform may see a silver train slowly pull up. You must not get on it under any circumstances. The train is heading to an abandoned station in the middle of the woods. Its passengers are said to be the souls of the dead. People who get on will never return. The legend is also connected to the abandoned Kimlinge metro station, which is said to be a ghost station. Locals say that only the dead get off at Kimlinge. Some people even believe the silver train takes people to an underground station with no exit. It never returns to pick them up. At number 9 now, we have the Palace of Skifla. Located in the capital of Stockholm, ghosts have been reported in this palace for well over 200 years. Some of the stories involve people seeing mirrors and windows just shattering for no reason at all, as well as music and songs floating down the corridor with no source in sight. One notable story involves a man called Jacob von Balthasar Niji. Try saying that in a hurry. He was a former owner of the palace who was allegedly a worshipper of Satan. He disappeared one night and witnesses said he was last seen entering a black carriage being pulled by a coachman with horns and a tail. Had he sold his soul to the devil? Some people certainly think so. This is just the top of the iceberg when it comes to the creepy goings on here. The palace is now owned by Stockholm University, who use it for storage. That's probably for the best. Coming at number 8 now, we have Borgvattnet Vicarage. Borgvattnet is a small village with just 50 residents there, but apparently a lot of ghosts. It's actually said to have the highest number of ghosts per people anywhere in the country. Perhaps the most haunted spot is the old vicarage. Built in 1876, it seemed like a normal building for some 50 50 years, and then locals began reporting creepy happenings. Ghosts that are not just scary, they're also violent. Some of the ghosts have reportedly knocked people out of chairs, moved furniture around while people are sleeping, or even one case of a ghost throwing babies out of a window. If that sounds like your idea of fun, you can actually book a room there for a night, and breakfast is included if you make it to the morning. Next up at number 7 now, we have Tofteholm Herrgård. Some Swedish people proudly claim this place as the most haunted hotel, not just in Sweden, but in the whole world. Located along the edge of Lake Vikostern, the hotel is picturesque, but comes with a very dark story attached to it. One night, a young man killed himself in one of the hotel's rooms after he was forbidden to marry the daughter of the landowner. He had a secret love affair with her for months, but her father, a very rich baron, refused to give his blessing because he was just a poor commoner. Instead, he married her off to another old baron not too dissimilar from himself. Heartbroken, he hanged himself from the rafters of what is now room 324. While most visitors do just avoid that room, that hasn't stopped them seeing the ghost of the heartbroken man. He is said to wander through the hotel at night, shutting windows and crying out into the darkness. Coming in at number 6 now, we have Gamla Stan. In 1520, the Danish king Christian II invaded Sweden. 92 members of the Swedish royal family refused to obey the invader, and so Christian sentenced them all to death. All 92 of them were either beheaded or hanged in the main square of the old town of Stockholm known as Gamla Stan. Some people say their blood flowed across the cobblestones for months. In the red building nearby, 92 white stones came to represent the 92 Swedish nobles who died. Now, locals believe that if a single stone is removed, the ghost of one of the dead nobles will rise up and haunt the streets of Stockholm forever. At number 5 now, we have the red car. This legend tells of a group of witches who travel the roads looking for men at night. They're also known as the carriage of the witches. The red car travels between Mexico City and Cuernavaca. The passengers are 3 witches disguised as beautiful women. When they see a man alone by the side of the road, they pull over and try to get him inside. If the man accepts, he is usually found sometime later, lying lifeless by the side of the road, battered, bruised, and with strange arcane symbols all over his body. It's thought they're sacrificed to the devil as part of an occult ritual, and the car is red only because of the blood of the victims. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Tube House. This is an abandoned mansion in Monterrey, Mexico. It was built in the 1970s by a family of 3 who wanted to make a comfortable place to live for their daughter who was in a wheelchair. When the parents brought their daughter to see the home for the first time, the little girl fell off one of the ramps and went straight through a window, falling to her death. The parents were obviously distraught and eventually put the house up for sale. In the years since then, visitors have sworn they have seen the ghost of the little girl. They always see her standing there in the same window she fell to her death from, waving and smiling forever. Next up at number 3 now, we have El Cucuy. According to legend, El Cucuy is a small, hideous, hairy creature with deep glowing red eyes. He has ears like a bat and a mouthful of teeth as sharp as daggers. El Cucuy comes out at night to steal children away. Some say he can take the form of any dark shadow, which he uses to watch children as they sleep. Once the child is asleep, El Cucuy will pounce and take them away to his lair. Children will hide in their wardrobes or under their beds just to avoid him. He is essentially the Mexican version of the boogeyman, or perhaps the very same person. Alright, moving on to number 2 now, we have Chupacabra. This is a story of a strange beast that blurs the lines between fact and fiction. Some describe it as a vicious, furry, lizard-like creature with bulging red eyes, fanged teeth, and a long, darting tongue. Its name roughly translates to goat sucker because of its tendency to prey on goats and other livestock. The animals it attacks are left with every ounce of blood drained out of them. What kind of creature would do this? Is it something natural or not? And finally, number 1 now, we have the severed hands. In Mexico, some people say there exists the Alley of the Hands. In 1780, a priest set up in the town of Alfalfa in Mexico. He hired 2 local boys to help look after his horses. One night, the boys returned to the house to find the priest had been murdered, lying in a pool of his own blood. They ran to get help. The police couldn't figure out who did it and began to suspect it was actually the 2 boys. After intense interrogation, the boys began to blame each other. They were put on trial and found guilty. They were then hung by the neck and their hands were cut off. The hands were then hung on the wall of the alley outside the priest's house as a warning to others. Ever since then, people have been afraid to walk through the Alley of the Hands. Whenever they do, they make the sign of the cross and pray. Locals say that on a cold, dark night in November, you can even see their skeletal hands floating above you in the alley. Starting off at number 10 now, we have White Death. The White Death is said to be a vengeful spirit in Mexico who hunts down anyone who knows about her existence. If this ends up being true, I'm sorry to drag all of you guys into it. She's said to be an undead girl with cold black eyes that weep blood. She glides but never walks and stalks her victims like wild animals, chasing them back to their homes. Then she waits until night and knocks at your door. One knock means she wants your skin, 2 for your hair, 3 for your bones, 4 for your heart, 5 for your teeth, 6 for your eyes, and 7 for your soul, which she will swallow whole. At number 9 now we have La Lechuza. According to legend, she was a witch who used magic to turn herself into a giant white owl. It's said that she sold her soul to the devil to become more powerful. Sometimes she appears as an owl the size of a human being, with the head of an owl and the body of an elderly woman. She is said to wait outside the house of her victims, crying out into the night until they step outside. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Phantom of the Park. In the small city of Yarel del Progreso lies a park called the Benito Juarez Park. It's built on the remains of an old forgotten cemetery. The locals say this disturbed the spirits of the dead there and unleashed a deadly curse. Every night the benches were vandalized and nobody knew who was causing the damage. The city hired a security guard to patrol the grounds. One night, around midnight, a dense fog emerged and crept out over the park. The guard heard the cries of a woman, and then he saw her, a shadowy figure lurking near the park benches. It looked like an old woman in a long white dress. When he got closer, he saw she had no legs and was floating above the ground. Then she attacked him. He managed to escape and told his boss the very next morning. A few days later, he died of a mysterious illness. Locals have accepted the Phantom of the Park now, and they know a mysterious illness will fall upon anyone who sees her at midnight. Next up at number 7 now, we have La Malinche. This story dates back to 1522, when the noble Aztec woman La Malinche had 2 sons with the Spanish conquistador Cortez. He told her he was going to return back to Spain with his sons. She had a dream where one of her gods appeared and said, if you let him take your children, one of them will return and destroy your people. The night before Cortez departed, La Malinche escaped with the boys. Cortez's soldiers chased them to the lake on which Mexico City now lies. Just before the soldiers captured them, she stabbed the boys in their hearts with a dagger and dropped their bodies into the water. She screamed out into the night, saying, "Oh my children." In the century since then, many Mexican families have reported seeing her ghost wandering the streets at night, grieving the loss of her children. The families lock up their kids for fear of her doing the same thing to them. Next up at number 6 now, we have La Planchada. In the 1930s, a nurse known as La Planchada worked at Hospital Juarez. Her name roughly translates to the Iron Lady. She fell for a doctor, but he left her for another nurse. La Planchada was distraught and fell into a deep depression. She deteriorated and eventually succumbed to an illness which killed her. Legend says that she returned to the land of the living with a hatred for all nurses. Ever since then, she walks the corridors of hospitals at night, caring for patients while they sleep, but ready to release all of her anguish if she comes across another nurse. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Devil's Mountain. We talked about Mount Banahor earlier. If that's the good and sacred mountain, then this might be the polar opposite. Its name is Mount Cristobal, and it has gathered a reputation for being the home of many evil creatures, perhaps even the devil himself. There have been a number of cases of hikers going missing along the dark and dense trails there. Officials put it down to poor choices or inexperience, but many locals disagree. They say that supernatural beings have been attacking people as they try to climb the mountain. Naturally, this puts a lot of people off, but some relish the idea of this. It's a common belief that if you can get through the dense forest and fight off these supernatural creatures, you can reach the top and challenge the devil himself. For many people though, simply feeling the ominous presence as they approach the mountain is more than enough for them. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Bloody Bridge. The San Juanico Bridge is said to be the longest bridge in the Philippines, but for many people in the area, that's not why it's well known. It connects the sister islands of Samar and Leyte. It was built as a gift from Ferdinand Marcos, former president of the Philippines, to his wife Imelda, who was a native of Leyte. He left her in charge of the building. During its construction, locals began to notice a number of children were disappearing from both Samar and Leyte. Then, when the bridge was complete, the children just stopped vanishing. How were the two connected? Well, this is the gruesome part. Some people say the foundations of the bridge were made stronger by mixing in the blood of babies and street children using an ancient ritual used to strengthen structures. Some even say the bodies of the children were added to the cement mixer by the construction workers while preparing the cement. Amazingly, there are even more gory versions of the story out there. The only thing they have in common is that this bridge may not have been made in the normal way. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the Romblon Triangle. You guys may have heard of the Bermuda Triangle before. Well, this is kind of the Filipino equivalent. Over the years, this area has seen many ships disappear under mysterious circumstances. If they manage to not disappear, many ships have gone down in tragic circumstances. Since 1980, a number of passenger ships have sunk, some of which with thousands of passengers on board. Then there is the legend of the ghost ship. The ship was owned by Lolo Amang in life and now haunts the waters. It's said to be made of gold and glimmers in the night. On April 22nd, 1980, the Don Juan passenger ship crashed into an oil tanker with 1,000 people on board. It quickly sank. Survivors said that just before the crash, they saw the ghost ship approaching them. There seemed to be some sort of party on board as it glimmered in the night. The captain of the Don Juan tried to swerve out of the way to avoid the ghost ship and ended up crashing into the oil tanker, which ultimately sank them. Officials say the strange occurrences are nothing more than bad weather or bad luck, but locals say that far too many stories have come from the triangle for it to be just bad weather. Next up, number 2 now, we have the White Lady of Balete Drive. This one comes from Quezon City, where locals believe one street is haunted above all others, all thanks to the White Lady. She is said to be a harbinger of death, a revenge ghost that wants the living to feel the fear and terror that she felt before she died. She has been seen since the 1950s, appearing and then vanishing along that road, even materializing inside people's cars as they drive. The stories tend to go the same way. A driver will be going down the road when they see a beautiful woman standing by the side looking for a lift. They pick her up, but after a while of talking, they look in their rear view mirror to see that her face is twisted, torn, bruised and oozing with blood. Locals have learnt to not pick up hitchhikers on that road and to certainly never look in the rear view mirror. Several taxi drivers have been said to crash in that area from the shock of seeing the White Lady. Many say this is what she wants, to cause the pain and suffering which led to her own death on that dark and creepy road. And finally, number 1 now, we have Maria Labo. This is the name of a famous woman in some parts of the Philippines. They say she was a vampire. In life, she was a caring mother and wife who wanted to give the best life to her family. One day she signed up as an overseas Filipino worker and moved to Canada to care for sick people. One of the patients there was dying from an unknown disease. Later on, before his dying breath, the patient leant in and bit Maria, passing on his vampiric powers to her. She accepted the power without knowing the price that she would have to pay. Maria returned to the Philippines, where her hunger for human blood began to grow. She could contain it no longer and eventually killed and cooked her own 2 sons. After that, she became an aswang, a Filipino folklore creature that feasts on humans. Her husband returned home to find what she had done and flew into a rage. He attacked her and slashed her face with a bolo knife. She managed to escape though, and now locals say that if you ever see her lurking in the shadows, you'll know it's her from the huge scar across her face, and then it's up to you to start running. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Snake Man. For many years now, there has been a story going around Manila of a half snake, half human hybrid that stalks local malls there. The mall belongs to Robinson's Malls, which is owned by Robina Gokong Wei. People say that she had a set of twins. One of them was born normal, the other came out as a half snake, half human with an insatiable appetite for human flesh. Robina panicked about what she would do with this creature that was still her child, and so she came up with a plan. She is said to have opened up the shopping mall there so that she could hide her son in the basements and tunnels below it. According to the stories, as shoppers try clothes on inside the dressing rooms, they will be swallowed by remote controlled floors where the Snake Man will be waiting to devour them below. In 2015, a video emerged online claiming to show the Snake Man's body. It appears to be dead. The video remains unverified though, and this strange urban legend lives on. Next up at number 9 now, we have the elevator. There are variations of this urban legend all over the Philippines, but they often follow the same pattern. A doctor in a hospital walks into an elevator with another patient inside. As they face the doors, they see a small boy running down the hallway towards the elevator, his eyes wide and pale. The doctor quickly presses the closed door button and the boy is shut out just as he gets to the elevator. As the elevator makes its journey down to the basement, the patient turns to the doctor and says, "Why did you do that? The little boy wanted to get on and you stopped him." The doctor just shakes their head slowly and says, "I wanted to, I really did, but he had a red wristband on." We only put those on people that have died. The patient then looks down for a moment in silence and then raises their own arm up to the doctor, smiles and says, "Just like my one." At number 8 now we have Mount Banahor. This is a well-known and sacred mountain in the Philippines, but with all the respect it receives, it also has its fair share of scary stories. Perhaps the most famous one involves the disappearing hikers. Locals say they go up the mountain and never return. No trace of them is ever found. They say this is actually a landing site for alien spaceships, and those aliens have been abducting the hikers for years. These visitations have been witnessed by hundreds of people, including a TV crew who filmed it. One story involves some hikers spending the night on the slopes of the mountain. One of them woke up and decided to sleep outside of the tent as it would be more comfortable for them. Then there was a blinding light and the hiker woke up. It was the next morning and they were on top of an entirely different mountain, miles away. They eventually reunited with the other hikers and said they had no explanation for how they ended up so far away, except that they had been abducted by aliens. Next up at number 7 now we have the My Way killings. In the early 2000s, a fear gripped people across the Philippines. A particular song seemed to be killing people. My Way by Frank Sinatra. It was a popular karaoke choice at the time, but became infamous for a number of deaths related to it. In 2007, for example, a 29-year-old man singing at a bar in San Mateo, Rizal was shot dead as he sang the song at karaoke by the bar's security guard. Why? Because the guard thought the man's rendition was out of tune, and when the victim refused to stop singing, the guard pulled out his pistol and shot him dead. This became a fairly common story, with at least 10 documented cases between 2002 and 2012. People began to associate singing the song with being killed. In 2007, the song was actually taken off karaoke machines in many bars in Manila. Even people who were skeptical before will choose to avoid this song for fear of invoking the curse. Next up at number 6 now we have the Headless Priest. This legend goes back hundreds of years, kept alive by just how grisly and gruesome it is. During the Filipino Revolution and World War II, many Filipino priests were beheaded by soldiers. As many of you are probably aware, a common theme with ghosts is that they cannot find rest until they have found the peace which they could not in life. These headless priests, that peace can only be found when they are reunited with their heads. Many people claim to have seen their ghosts prowling graveyards at night, searching for their heads, or perhaps even more scarily, carrying them under their arms, looking for a way to reattach them. They cannot speak, but they will still approach you if they see you, in the hopes that you can reattach their head and send them to the afterlife. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the human pillars. This legend dates back to ancient times in Japan, where it's known as Hito Bashira. Back then, there was a belief that a human sacrifice sealed inside a structure would make the foundation more stable. This means that many old Japanese buildings are said to contain the spirits of the people who were sacrificed during their construction. One famous example is Matsu Castle, where a woman was sealed inside the foundations during its construction. Now her spirit is said to haunt the castle, and whenever a woman dances there, the castle shakes violently. Many building owners in Japan are actually quite open about their buildings being a human pillar. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Snake Woman. This one comes from the old Japanese folklore of Nuri Onna, which translates to wet woman. She's often described as having the head of a woman and the body of a snake, with long claws, snake eyes and jet black hair. She carries with her a childlike bundle to lure in her victims. If a person then tries to pick up the baby to help, they find it's not actually a child at all. The bundle then becomes very heavy and stops the victim from fleeing. The Snake Woman then uses her long tongue to suck all of the blood from the victim's body until they die. Next up at number 3 now, we have Oni Baba. She is a demon woman that often appears in Japanese folklore. She will often appear as an old woman asking for help, but if you get too close, she will slice you open with a knife and eat you. She's said to be the tormented spirit of a woman who accidentally killed her own pregnant daughter and an unborn grandchild in an effort to find a cure for her friend's child being sick. She was told to bring back the liver of an unborn child, but when she finally killed her victims, she found they were actually her own family. Okay, next up at number 2 now, we have the Dream School. This one is extra creepy because apparently if you don't forget this story within a week of hearing it, it will happen to you. Let's see if that's true. One night, a boy had a dream about a school. The hallways just looped forever, bringing him always back to the start. Staircases led back to the first floor. As he got quite scared, he heard footsteps behind him. He ran until he found an emergency exit with a glass box and a key next to it. The glass had been smashed and there was no key, just a note saying that it could be found in room 108. When he found that room, it was empty. no students, but there were backpacks hanging off every single chair. Then there was a pounding on the door. He opened it, terrified, to find the hallways covered with dead children. It's said that he never woke up from his dream, and if you don't forget this story in 1 week, you will meet the same fate. Don't worry though guys, I don't think this is true, although if you don't see me on the channel next week, sorry. And finally at number 1 now we have Onryo. This is a traditional Japanese belief about a vengeful spirit that can and will physically hurt the living. It's a very scary concept if you're only familiar with the Western idea of ghosts, which don't really tend to take solid forms and so can't hurt humans with physical contact in the traditional way. That's not true though for an Onryo. They are vengeful and full of hate, stopping at nothing to enact the suffering they received when they were alive. For any of you guys who have seen The Grudge, this spirit is the influence for that creepy girl in that movie. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Tek Tek. This is the urban legend about a girl who fell under a train and was cut in half. She then became a vengeful spirit that moves using her hands and elbows, dragging herself while making the sound Tek Tek. If you hear that noise, you're supposed to just run for your life. Those who are caught by the Tek Tek will receive a fate just like hers. She's said to slash her victims in half so that they look like her, and possibly also become wandering vengeful spirits just like she is. At number 9 now, we have the Slit-Mouthed Woman. You may recognize this one from a number of Japanese movies and TV shows. The traditional name for this being is Kuchi Saki Onna and dates back over 300 years ago. She's a woman who was brutally murdered by her husband after he found out that she was having an affair with another samurai. This left her in death as a restless, vengeful spirit. She is said to cover her mouth with a cloth mask, a fan, or a scarf. If you approach her, she'll ask you if you think she's pretty. If you answer yes, she will then remove the mask, and when the victim screams, they will be slashed from ear to ear until they look like her. Even if you say no to this question, she's said to just follow you home and then brutally murder you that night. Bit of a lose-lose situation. Next up at number 8 now, we have Daruma-san. This urban legend is more of an old game that's been passed down through the years. So here's how it goes. You shower in a bath, you turn off the lights, and you chant Daruma-san fell down while you wash your hair. It's said that you will then see a woman in your mind. She is Daruma-san. She'll be standing up in a bath, you will see her slip and fall onto an old rusty tap. It goes straight through her eye and kills her. Then you will feel her ghostly presence somewhere behind you. Now if you turn around, there she will be. Black, tangled hair, rotting clothes, one eye is bloodshot and the other is just a bloody, hollow eye socket. The game continues even further than that if you dare, but I think that's enough for you guys to understand just how creepy this urban legend is. Okay, at number 7 now, we have The Girl from the Gap. This Japanese story comes from people's natural fear of what lies lurking in the cracks of a home. Do you guys ever see something move past the hinge of a door when the door is open? Is that someone looking out from inside your wardrobe? Have you ever pictured a hand reaching out from between your bed and the floor? Well, it could be the girl from the Gap, a spirit that lives both physically and metaphorically between worlds. It's said that if you ever see her, she will ask you if you want to play hide and seek. At that point, the game is on. When you see her between a gap again, she'll drag you to an otherworldly hell. At number 6 now, we have The Red Room. This is a very modern Japanese urban legend about a pop-up ad that's all red and black. When you see it in a child's voice, it will simply repeat the phrase, "Do you like?" Apparently a boy who got the pop-up tried to close it, but it just kept reappearing. Then it changed to, "Do you like red?" He keeps trying to close it, but it grows larger and changes again to say, "Do you like the red room?" Then the site changes entirely. It's just completely red and black. It has a list of names on it. His friend's name is at the bottom. A hand reaches out towards the boy's neck from a video. The ending gets even more twisted, but guess what? It's based on a real website. It's still out there. If you can find it, you'll know the gruesome legend of the Red Room, and if the horrible ending comes true for you.
Coming in at number 5 is Bigfoot. It's like the most well-known urban legend of all time. I'd argue it was maybe even the first one. But anyway, coming in second to Washington, California has the most reported Bigfoot sightings in the US. The creature, which is said to be a giant, hairy, human ape creature of sorts, is said to live in the wilderness. Yosemite National Park is said to be the most haunted national park in America because it was Bigfoot's first home. Campers have apparently seen it wander into their camps, to which of course they've screamed and ran away. The weirder part is that Bigfoot has been said to scream louder and run too, which is a bit cute, I'm not gonna lie. In 1962 on Mount Shasta, a woman claimed to have seen Bigfoot give birth, which A, I didn't even know it was a female, and B, now we have a mini Bigfoot on our hands. But I guess that was nearly 80 years ago, so it's probably adult Bigfoot now. Either way, I honestly feel like it's a harmless creature, so why don't we just leave the poor thing alone? It's not harming anyone. anyone. I mean, it hasn't harmed anyone yet. At number 4 are the Gates of Hell. A deserted road in Antioch called Empire Mine Road has a gate on its side that locals call the Gates of Hell. And at first glance, it honestly looks like a rundown graffitied gate, and most people wouldn't even notice it driving by, but driving by won't do anything to you. It's crossing in the gates that could hurt you. The first legend about the gates is about an insane asylum that it used to be the entrance to. And it was one of those horror movie asylums. I'm talking straitjackets, lobotomies, shock treatments, the whole shebang. And because of that, many believe the ghosts of deceased patients stalk the area, and some even suffer from the same illness that they had in real life. And the spirits around asylums are usually angrier than ones found elsewhere, and if you cross the gate, you could very well be attacked by one of the ghosts. One group of explorers felt rocks being pelted at them, and when they got back into their car, they felt a giant creature leap onto the hood. The second legend is that it was a slaughterhouse that sat near the gates, and that the spirits haunting it are of the animals. But the slaughterhouse was also home to a horrific murder that happened in 1995. A man came running and screaming out of the slaughterhouse, head to toe dripping in blood, claiming his girlfriend had stabbed him. Before medics could get to him, he died. So there is a lot of bad energy radiating around this gate. Filling our number 3 slot is the statue. A girl named Jessica was babysitting for a rich family in California, so you can well imagine that the house was massive with rooms upon rooms inside. During the night in question, the parents went out for a movie, and so the dad told Jessica once the kids are asleep, she could go watch TV in the living room. And that wasn't a nice move so she could be entertained, it was so she wouldn't wander and snoop around the house. The kids go to bed and Jessica starts watching TV. I mean, she tries watching it but can't ignore the clown statue in the corner of the room. Even though she found the statue a bit out of place in line with the other decor, she let it go, but after a while it started freaking her out so much that she had to call the dad. She asked him if she could switch rooms because the clown statue was freaking her out. The father replied saying get the kids and leave the house and call the police. She started asking him why, but he told her to just shut up and do it now. She ended up getting the kids and going to the neighbors and calling the police. But she later ended up calling the dad. He said they didn't have a clown statue and that the children had been complaining of a clown watching them sleep, but they assumed it was just a nightmare. Listen to your kids, people, listen to your kids. It's so funny, I've heard so many variations of this legend, but I had no idea it originated in California. Now at number 2 is the mass murder. Now this is an urban legend that circulates in California every year around Halloween. The legend has been around for decades, but it really only gained traction in the social media age. Yay for Twitter and mass murder. The legend starts with a photo from 1962 of a bunch of masked figures posing for what seems like a Halloween party picture. Everyone's in a white face mask, but the figure in the middle is in a black hooded one. Legend has it moments after the photo was taken, the black hooded figure locked all the doors to the party and then went and killed 7 of the party members before escaping from the scene. No one has any idea who the man is, and the only thing ever found about the case was the mask itself. Ugh, I just don't like people in masks on Halloween from way back when, like their masks were so scary. And these days dressing up for Halloween isn't scary, but back then it actually was. And finally, at number 1 are the witches. East Bay's Black Diamond Mines are one of the scariest places in California. At the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, the area was a thriving coal mining community, and the people who lived there are still buried in the Rose Hill Cemetery. There are so many ghost stories surrounding the mines, but the most popular one is a story of Sarah Norton and Mary. Sarah was a widow who married Noah Norton, and it was widely known that she was a witch. One day her services were called for in the town of Clayton, but on the way there she was thrown out of her buggy and killed. In life, she was a very religious, pious woman who emphasized how she didn't want a funeral, yet the locals of Somerville felt she was owed one. The day of her funeral, a terrible storm hit the town and it was delayed. The following day, another storm hit, but this time the town's livestock also came charging through it. The townspeople realized that this all could have been Sarah's spirit telling them she didn't want a funeral under any circumstances. Since then, her ghost has been seen floating around town, but mostly lurking in Rose Hill Cemetery. Now on to Mary. It was a very common name back then, as you can well imagine, so we don't know what her last name was, but her occupation was being a nanny. But strangely enough, every single child she cared for ended up dying, and so the town accused her of witchcraft. And usually in these witchcraft cases, an innocent person is accused, but with Mary, they actually found evidence of her sorcery rituals. She was hung soon after and is said to be seen near the mines wearing full white. Honestly, what is it with ghosts and wearing white? Like, is it symbolism? What does it mean? Someone tell me. Starting us off at number 10 is Suicide Bridge. Starting off strong, you know how I am. Built in 1912, the Pasadena, Colorado Street Bridge is a scenic drive. It's on a riverbed, it has lamps, there's an old charm about it that makes it romantic almost, but it's also the site of many atrocities. authorities. Over 100 horrible suicides have taken place at the bridge that the bridge is actually called Suicide Bridge by most. It garnered such a reputation that in 1993 they installed a suicide barrier on the bridge to try and lower the numbers. The stories of the suicides are also very hard to digest. In 1937, Myrtle Ward took her 3-year-old daughter to the bridge after her husband left her. She threw her daughter off the bridge and then leaped herself, but thankfully her daughter landed in a few thick branches which slowed her descent and left her unharmed, but Myrtle plummeted to her death. Many have seen her ghost on the bridge and in the riverbed below, forever looking for her daughter. Another story is more recent, taking place in 2008, where a man stabbed and killed his wife and grandmother and then killed himself. And that was only 2 stories out of countless ones I could have told you. So of course, with that much death going on there are that many ghosts. Many spirits haunt the bridge, including a man wearing glasses and a woman that continuously keeps mimicking her fall off the bridge. Homeless people camping under the bridge have reported hearing eerie cries and sounds at night, and the ghost of a man who whispers her fault to anyone that walks by, obviously referring to whoever drove him to take his own life, but no one knows who he's talking about. Coming in at number 9 is alien blood. I actually read about this story a few years ago and I didn't realize how much of a lasting impact it left on California, but evidently I guess it did. Back in 1984 at Riverside General Hospital, a woman called Gloria Ramirez was admitted to the ER to have her blood drawn, but as soon as it was drawn, the foulest smell filled the room and her skin started becoming oilier and oilier. Then, like flies, the medical staff started dropping, half started passing out, while the other half lost complete control of their limbs. 5 members ended up being hospitalized and 1 even spent 2 weeks in intensive care. The weird occurrence affected over 24 members of staff, which left a skeleton crew to try and save her life. They failed and she died 40 minutes later. Until this day, no one has any idea what happened or what it was about her blood that took down 23 people. They dub it the legend of the alien blood that poisoned the hospital. And to me, I feel like science has a lot of answers for a lot of things, but when something comes up that they can't answer and nearly 40 years later they still can't answer it, that's worrying. At number 8 we have the lady in white, because every urban legend video would not be complete without at least one ghostly lady wearing white. Hailed as one of the most famous Californian urban legends, the legend is about the thing that probably makes California famous, the Hollywood sign. The sign that has been the backdrop of countless Instagrams and movies and is said to be haunted by Peg Entwistle, a famous actress from the early 1900s. That's so Hollywood, isn't it? An actress haunting the sign. It came full circle almost. But anyway, the legend goes like this. After an excruciatingly harsh review of one of her movies, one people dubbed a career-ending review, she decided she couldn't take the thought of her career ending, and so she decided to end her life instead. She climbed to the top of the H in the sign and threw herself off of it. So based on that, many people claim a lady in white can be seen hiking in the off-limits area near the sign around the place she killed herself. But if you find yourself up there and are hoping to see a beautiful actress, you'd be quite wrong. What appears is an eerie woman with hollowed out eyes and a skeletal face. If she finds you there alone, she can influence you to follow in her footsteps and end your life as well. In the century that followed her suicide, many suicide cases have been reported in the area, and in 2012 police even found a man's mutilated body parts and decapitated head right where she killed herself. Filling our number 7 slot is the prop of New Pike. So Elmer McCurdy was a famously notorious outlaw who died in the early 1900s. In 1911, his embalmed corpse became a sideshow act through Texas for people who wanted to come and gawk at the criminal and his displayed body. Or rather, his body traveled all over America, eventually landing itself in Long Beach, California. There, his body was mistaken for a prop and was hung in a fun house at New Pike Amusement Park. The truth was only discovered in 1976 when a film crew tried to adjust him and ended up dislodging his arm. Imagine going into that fun house as a kid expecting mildly scary props and then coming face to face with a real corpse. I'd never go to an amusement park again. Legit I wouldn't. Now at number 6 is Old Stage Road. Now Old Stage Road is located in Salmas and it's been the site of horrible deaths, gang-related deaths, lynchings, and a Japanese concentration camp was even located there during the wartime. So due to all that death, countless ghosts and spirits do haunt the road. But this specific story comes from Redditor Moonriver7811, who said his aunt told him a story of when she was young and pregnant. Her and her husband decided to take some back roads as a shortcut and ended up on Old Stage Road. She was looking out the window for a while and she suddenly saw a woman. The woman was keeping pace with the car and just turned her head to look at his aunt, and what she saw scarred her for life. The skin of the woman was so pale it looked almost transparent. Her hair was like white hay. She seemed seemed almost 100 years old. But it wasn't even her appearance that freaked his aunt out, it was the hatred and anger she could see in her eyes. The uncle stepped on the gas and they managed to get rid of her, and the user decided after hearing the story he should also go to the road as well with his friends at 3 AM drunk. The friends went there and stopped near Hangman's Tree and decided to walk on the road, not stay inside the safety of their car. Very stupid mistake, kids. One of the friends decided to pee on the tree, douchebag move, and it's not surprising that pissed off spirits after that. They got back into the car and were switching between CDs when they heard a loud "Get Out" on the radio. After hearing it and realizing it was none of them, they drove for their lives. Half a mile later, one of the friends in the back who had been asleep the whole time screamed, saying she'd had the worst nightmare. She never remembered going back into the car and said she was walking down the street and turned around and saw that the car wasn't there anymore. All of a sudden, an old lady with rotten teeth and claws tried to bite her, and that's when she woke up. Despite the road being old as hell, murders still continue to happen on and around it.
Next up at number 5 now we have the Eyeless Woman. This urban legend comes from north of Seoul. There you can find a strip of highway that connects Goyang to Paju. It's called Jeuro, and it's a road that's notorious for heavy fog that's been blamed for a number of horrific car accidents over the years. At least that's what the officials say. You see, many locals believe there is a supernatural cause behind the accidents. Many drivers have claimed to have seen a young woman wearing sunglasses stood on the side of the highway at night. It's only when they get close that the drivers realize there are no sunglasses. Instead, her eyes are actually gouged out and absolutely hollow. The shock of seeing her sends drivers careering off the road and to their untimely deaths. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the cockroaches. This South Korean urban legend will freak out anyone with a fear of creepy crawlies. The story goes like this. One day, a girl's stomach started to hurt really bad. She didn't see any reason for this, and so she went straight to the hospital. The doctors took an x-ray which appeared to show what they called foreign elements inside her. They took some more detailed x-rays and discovered that what they were actually looking at were cockroaches inside her body. Somehow a cockroach's eggs had ended up inside her, where they had hatched into fully grown cockroaches, happy of the fluids and warmth. They showed no signs of wanting to leave and had to be removed through surgery. Many people now check their clothes twice for cockroach eggs unless they want the story to come true for them too. Next up at number 3 now we have the dead dream. According to some people in Korea, there have been reports of dead family members appearing in people's dreams. One such story involves that of a man who dreamt his grandmother was beckoning him over while she was waist deep in water. He wanted to go to her in the dream. After all, he did miss her, and she was still his grandmother, even if she was behaving really creepily. Something didn't feel right though. He felt in danger even though it was just a dream. The next day he told his wife about the dream and her eyes widened. His wife explained what the dream meant. She said if you go into the arms of a dead person in a dream, especially if they're in water, it will be a sure sign that your soul is about to be stolen. The husband said he kept having the same dream night after night, but each time he could feel himself getting pulled closer and closer to her. He was only just managing to wake up in time. Then one day they realized they had kept one of the grandmother's possessions in the house by accident instead of leaving her to rest with it. The family believed this is what tied her spirit to the house still and was causing the dreams. After they paid their respects once more, the man's dreams stopped. At least for now. Next up at number 2 now we have fan death. This is a well-known urban legend in Korean culture that fans not only cool people down, they can also kill them. They are said to do this in a number of different ways. One way is hypothermia. A person's metabolism is said to slow down at night and make them become more sensitive to heat. Some people believe this makes them more prone to hypothermia, and that essentially a fan really can freeze you to death. Then there is the slightly more creepy reason, asphyxiation. Some believe that fans will suck up oxygen and blow carbon dioxide towards this sleeping person. This will slowly kill them in their sleep. It seems that this urban legend is very prevalent in Korea. In 2006, a South Korean government group warned of asphyxiation from electric fans and said they can kill people, especially elder patients or those with breathing problems. And finally at number 1 now we have the cockroach face. Yes, we're returning to cockroaches now for our final story. It goes a little bit like this. A guy had some bad acne on his face. He was desperate to cure it, perhaps a little bit too desperate. He told his friends he would do anything to get rid of the unsightly scars the spots had left on his face. They told him to go see a local shaman who apparently had a very special method for treating acne. He didn't ask any questions. Like I said, he would do anything for a cure. The shaman sat him down and quickly told him exactly what he needed to do. He told him to find a cockroach before going to bed. He would have to put it next to his pillow just before going to sleep. Sleeping with this cockroach by his face would make the scars go away. The guy didn't ask any questions about how this would work and went home. He found a cockroach, left it right by his pillow, and tried to get to sleep that night. The next morning he woke up, he looked in the mirror and was amazed to see that it had worked. His scars were all gone. But then, on closer inspection, he saw that the scar holes were not gone. They were simply filled with dozens of tiny, oozing cockroach eggs. I hope you guys haven't eaten recently because I feel a little bit sick.